Our role in Iraq will be to be available to continue to train, to assist, and to deal with ISIS as it arrives. But we are not going to be, by the end of the year, in a combat mission.
While ISIS has been defeated militarily in both Iraq and Syria, this year has seen multiple rocket and drone attacks inside Iraq. No groups have claimed responsibility, but it's believed Iran-backed militias are behind the strikes. Rebecca Foster, Washington.
And finally, the UK government announced this week that fully vaccinated travellers from the US and EU will be allowed to enter England without the need to quarantine on arrival. Our UK correspondent John Beaver reports.
Up to now, only those vaccinated in the UK are recognised by the increasingly complex travel rules here. It means for those fully vaccinated, there's no need to quarantine when returning from more than 100 countries on the green and amber travel list. From the 4th of August, those rules will also apply to people vaccinated in the United States and European Union. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps said the move will reunite people living in the US and European countries with their family and friends in the UK. John Beaver reporting.
There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story, and that was the Week in Review. Giles Gibson reporting.
A new Gallup poll found that the GOP has an overwhelming advantage among young people who look like old men. The poll shows Republicans hold a solid lead among the coveted elderly youth demographic, including 18 to 24-year-olds who wear suspenders and bow ties to class every day. I'm joined by Republican strategist Rob Powell. These are pretty encouraging numbers for the GOP, aren't they?
Yeah, of course, it's very encouraging. Millennials who look like they're permanently dressed for boat trips are a rapidly growing segment of the population.
And according to the survey, the prematurely aged are also very politically active.
Absolutely. Only about 20% of young people vote overall, but there's almost 100% turnout among youth that dress like a dad from a 1950s sitcom.
Now, what about the criticism that the GOP only appeals to white men?
Not true. We also have a lot of support among sorority girls that wear pantsuits and pearls, paunchy Chinese college students, and we're making inroads among African American ham radio enthusiasts.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live. We're kicking off another live Saturday episode of the program, and as always, you're invited. If you want to join us, dial us up here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And in the studio here with you tonight, you've got Ian.
And the captain.
Lots of stuff that we could talk about, whether we will or not, get to it is always a big question mark, but we do take requests here on Free Talk Live. If you want to, if you want us to talk about a thing, you ought to call in and join the show, bring that thing up. Man, there's so much that I've got in show prep here, and there's never enough time, but I'll just run over a couple options here for you. There's another home castration story in the news.
Oh, jeez.
And these things are just so horrifying.
What? What is wrong with people, man?
Yeah, I don't know. We can get into it. Have you heard about the metaverse? The metaverse. This is the new buzzword as far as where the internet is supposedly going. We can talk about that. Plus, Venezuelans enduring day-long waits to fill their gasoline tanks. Sydney now has the military deployed for enforcing lockdowns.
Yeah, Australia's getting really bad. I have an activist on one of my social medias, Samantha Packer, I think is her name. She's vehemently anti-cryptocurrency, but otherwise pro-freedom. Right, and she's
how strange
in Australia, right? Yeah, she thinks cryptocurrency is the work of the banks, and it's going to bring evil to the world. Because
sounds like someone who hasn't done much research.
Yeah, it is. But she's otherwise spot on in her assessments of and she's always highlighting the protests and things that are going on down there. So it's kind of encouraging to see that while yes, it seems very draconian and post-apocalypse, tyrannical, overlords and that kind of thing down there in the Australia, there are people who are freedom-oriented, who are protesting at least.
Thank goodness. So we can talk about all those things. But to start things out here, Captain, and I guess the protests and the crackdowns and the insane COVID restrictions, now again with the military being put in the streets of Sydney, Australia, to enforce COVID rules, that could be coming here. Now, the United States has a supposed prohibition against using the military in the streets. It's called posse comitatus. It's supposed to be something they don't do, but we see the government breaking its own rules all the time. So don't think for a moment that quote unquote can't happen here. And ultimately, what's the difference between the military and the National Guard, or heavily militarized police departments being put into the streets? So we know they'll do this stuff if that's what they want to do. But you've got a story that is from Vice News.
Yeah.
And it's about how they think, or whoever it is, somebody thinks that we're right on schedule to have everything fall apart.
So I was born in 1972, and MIT predicted in 1972 that society will collapse this century. Okay. So 49 years ago, they were like, yep, in like more than 50 years, society's going to collapse somehow. Okay. And this title says, or this headline reads, "New research shows we're right on schedule." So according to their predictions anyway. 1972 MIT study predicted that rapid economic growth would lead to societal collapse in the mid-21st century. A new paper shows we're unfortunately right on track.
Why would that happen? Why would maybe they're going to tell us, but why would economic growth
I don't know.
collapse society?
I don't know that it's possible for economic growth to collapse a society.
I'm already detecting a leftist slant here.
Oh, what you think from Vice?
Vice.
Why, that would never occur.
But let's hear it.
A remarkable new study by a director at one of the largest accounting firms in the world has found that a famous decades-old warning from MIT about the risk of industrial civilization collapsing appears to be accurate based on new empirical data. As the world looks forward to a rebound in economic growth following the devastation wrought by the pandemic, or as I like to call it, the government response to the flu. Yeah. The research raises urgent questions about the risks of attempting to simply return to pre-pandemic normal. In 1972, a team of MIT scientists got together to study the risks of civilizational collapse. Their system dynamics model, published by the Club of Rome, identified impending limits to growth. That meant industrial civilization was on track to collapse sometime within the 21st century due to overexploitation of planetary resources.
Yeah, this is definitely sounding like, socialist propaganda. Because, while there are limits to a given resource, right? There's only so much gold in the earth, okay? Yes. There's also no limit to human ingenuity.
Right.
So at one time, for instance, oil was considered a pollutant. Oh my God, if you're a farmer and now all of a sudden oil starts spilling up into your field from the ground, you're mad. Right. You just lost your crops.
Yep.
But that was before they realized that, holy crap, you can burn this stuff and do all kinds of other interesting things with it. So, people have been very ingenious, especially when there's a need, right? Because, that spurs more innovation to come up with things, new ways to use old things that, weren't as useful as in the past, they weren't as useful as they are now. So just because there are limits to certain things doesn't mean that there really are limits.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, we always talk about when people discover, libertarianism or voluntarism or any of the, the things that are linked to that type of a philosophy, who will build the roads, or, what will replace the wagons, right? Well, or what will replace the slaves, right? In the fields and that kind of thing. Well, the answer, of course, we know now was giant machines powered by crushed up juice from dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Right? Or something along those lines, right? I'm making a metaphor here, but at the time, nobody knew that, right? But the slaves were freed anyway, right? And then ingenuity, as you say, the spirit of invention, right? Necessity being the mother of invention,
That's
supposedly.
the phrase I was looking for, yeah.
So somebody invented, giant machines that run on, juice from the earth,
right?
Known as oil.
Now you don't need 100 guys with pickaxes. You can do it all with this one machine.
Right. And so, yeah, you're spot on with the ingenuity portion.
Yeah.
The controversial MIT analysis generated heated debate, was widely derided at the time by pundits who misrepresented its findings and methods. But the analysis has now received stunning vindication from a study written by a senior director at professional services giant KPMG, one of the big four accounting firms as measured by global revenue. The study was published in the Yale Journal of Industrial Ecology in November 2020, and it's available on the KPMG website. It concludes that the current business-as-usual trajectory of global civilization is headed toward the terminal decline of economic growth within the coming decade, and, at worst, could trigger societal collapse around 2040.
Now, that's too far away. I want societal collapse sooner rather than later, because, once it happens, and I think that, there's a possibility of a collapse.
Yeah.
I don't think it's because of what they're suggesting that it's growth that would cause it.
Right.
I think it's, hyperinflation, maybe the growth of the money supply, which is, of course, completely artificial and brought on by the state.
These were the exact thoughts that I had when first reading. I was like, well, obviously, like inflating a money supply, we take, I don't know, the largest empire planet Earth has ever known, who currently literally owns the banking system, in some way, shape, or form. The dollar, of course, is the chosen reserve currency for, well, just about everything on planet Earth. And so if the dollar collapses because the people behind it have gotten too big for their britches, so to speak, or too greedy, or, too powerful, whatever the case may be, and the dollar itself collapses, well, then, yes, I could totally see that having a devastating effect worldwide.
Absolutely.
So,
because it is the world's reserve currency,
right,
and it's used in different governments around the planet, like El Salvador and other places where the dollar is effectively the currency. They don't have a local currency. So, but let's go on. Let's hear more about
the study represents the first time a top analyst working within a mainstream global corporate entity has taken the limits to growth model seriously. Its author, Gaia Harrington, is Sustainability and Dynamic System Analysis Lead at KPMG in the United States. However, she decided to undertake the research as a personal project to understand how well the MIT model stood the test of time.
I want to hear the argument as to why economic growth, which is more productivity, more jobs, more creativity, why that would collapse an economy or whatever. It sounds ridiculous to me. It just makes people wealthier. That's a good thing. More coming up.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Free Talk Live.
So, yeah, Mark, they did ban all foreign flags from being flown in the event that they are the only flag being flown. But nonetheless, I mean,
it's the flying of a flag?
$50 fine and 30 hours of community service.
That's dumb. This doesn't really even affect.
What do you think? This is the land of the free?
Most of the Mexican flags I see are CDs hanging from people's rear view mirrors, stickers.
I think we could qualify that.
That's not a flag.
It doesn't look like a flag. Got them colors on it.
No.
We're going to
It's a
charge you
CD.
$50 fine. $50. That's right.
That CD, what if the CD has music on it?
Don't matter. It's a flag.
It's not a flag. It's a CD.
If you're flying it
Clearly,
like a flag,
sir,
it's a flag, my friend.
It's not a flag. It's hanging from fishing wire from my rear view mirror.
Hanging equals flag.
No, hanging does not
flag
equal flag.
equals $50 fine. Pay up.
Well, I have a...
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, the live Saturday show. Phones are open as always. If you want to join us, you can. And maybe you can explain what the presumably leftist author here at Vice is trying to say when he says that, or she, or whoever it is that's writing the story, trying to say when they claim that, MIT had a theory or a study or whatever back in the 70s saying that economic growth would lead to societal collapse. I'd love to hear why they think that would be the case. Because to me, economic growth means things get cheaper because manufacturing, and the market, costs come down over time. Again, presuming you don't have insane hyperinflation going on, okay? Presuming that's not happening, or any level of inflation for that matter. But things will get cheaper over time. You can see that with electronics, for instance, where there's not that much as far as regulation is, government's not really in control of that business, and some prices go down. Most businesses, that's true. Highly regulated businesses like healthcare, not true. Prices tend to go up over time. But where there's little regulation, the market drives costs down. Wages tend to go up over time through competition. You don't need the government to raise wages necessarily. People are making more. They have more leisure time now than they ever have in the past. When economic strength is on the rise, when the economy is going up, all boats are buoyed by that action. Even the poor today are way better off.
The rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes, and the poor, like today, are way better off than the poor were in 1921.
What was we covered a topic where it was like the poor in the United States are far wealthier than like the wealthy people in some other countries or whatever.
They're far wealthier than wealthy people would have been 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 200, certainly 200 years. The further you go back, it wasn't that long ago that we didn't have running water, and people take stuff for granted. Now, if you're poor, you probably have a big screen TV in your house that you can likely lift with one person.
You've certainly got a magic rectangle in your pocket.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even in El Salvador, where people are definitely poorer than here in the United States. The only reason I know about El Salvador is I've been looking at it recently because of the Bitcoin news that came out of there, which we've talked about here. Not to rehash that, but the question was, well, can all these El Salvadoran merchants receive Bitcoin payments? And it turns out the average El Salvadoran has 1.5 phones per person.
Oh.
So they got plenty of phones. Even in Africa, phones are very, very popular. Cell phones, they're well distributed because, well, actually, there's not government regulations that regulate where and when people can put up cell phone towers.
Right. Wireless towers require far less government. Not require, but have far less government interaction. Plus, infrastructure for wireless phones is way smaller than infrastructure for, any other kind of utility.
And I can't speak for all of Africa. Obviously, it's a big continent, so maybe some of the African states, like South Africa, probably have
Did you bless
regulations.
the rains down in Africa? Did you bless the rains?
I've never been, but it sounds like it's a really interesting place. So let's go on with the story from Vice News, recapping, I guess, a newer study or a new look at an old study from the 1970s about economic collapse.
Yeah, this author, Gaia Harrington, did the study. The study itself is not affiliated or conducted on behalf of KPMG and does not necessarily reflect the views of KPMG. Harrington performed the research as an extension of her master's thesis at Harvard University in her capacity as an advisor to the Club of Rome. However, she is quoted explaining her project on the KPMG website as follows. Given the unappealing prospect of collapse, I was curious to see which scenarios were aligning most closely with empirical data today. After all, the book that featured this world model was a bestseller in the 70s, and by now we'd have several decades of empirical data which we could make a comparison and make it meaningful.
Okay.
But to my surprise, I could not find recent attempts for this, so I decided to do it myself. Titled Update to Limits to Growth, Comparing the World 3 Model with Empirical Data, the study attempts to assess how MIT's World 3 model stacks up against new empirical data. Previous studies that attempted to do this found that the model's worst-case scenarios accurately reflected real-world developments. However, the last study of this nature was completed in 2014. So Harrington's new analysis examines data across 10 key variables, namely population, fertility rates, mortality rates, industrial output, food production, services, non-renewable resources, persistent pollution, human welfare, and ecological footprint. She found that the latest data most closely aligns with two particular scenarios, BAU2, which is business as usual, and CT, which stands for comprehensive technology. Both of those scenarios show a halt in growth within a decade or so from now, the study concludes. Both scenarios thus indicate that continuing business as usual, that is, pursuing continuous growth, is not possible.
Why?
Well, I don't know yet.
Okay.
And I don't know if they come right out and say why. We'll see. Even when paired with unprecedented technological development and adoption, business as usual as modeled would inevitably lead to declines in industrial capital, agricultural output, and welfare levels within this century. Study author Gaia Harrington told Motherboard that the MIT World 3 model's collapse does not mean that humanity will cease to exist, but rather economic and industrial growth will stop and then decline, which will hurt food production and standards of living. In terms of timing, the scenario shows a steep decline set in around 2040. It's followed by some charts.
Okay. I really am curious as to what they believe could possibly just halt all of this growth. I mean, without the intervention of the state. You know, when it comes to, you want to halt a business, if the state sends men with guns into the business, then, okay, usually those business owners are going to go ahead and turn off the production line, and they'll line up and do what they're told by the men with guns from government, and that will absolutely kill an industry. And certainly government has, they'll do that if they feel like it. But the idea that that's going to happen across all of business and it's just all going to come to a halt, I just don't understand it.
Yeah, they don't seem to, and I'm just sort of, breezing through some of this because it's a lot of, speculation rather than fact bringing. But it says, in a presentation at the World Economic Forum in 2020, delivered in her capacity as director, she argued for a growth, which is agnostic approach to growth, which focuses on other economic goals and priorities.
The World Economic Forum, by the way, is the group of executives and business executives and politicians, these big movers, if you will, and shakers who are the ones that are promoting the Great Reset. Remember hearing about that over the last year? Yeah, that's the World Economic Forum's terminology. That's who she apparently works for.
Yeah, this sounds like stuff that I heard around the Al Gore and we have to act or within 10 years the environment will be, and then 10 years went by and nothing changed. Okay. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of keep kicking that can down the road.
I think that's what's going on here is she is saying that this is going to happen. Bad things will happen unless we change to a new model of the economy advocated by the World Economic Forum, which is this whole, whatever the hell it is that they are talking about with the Great Reset, some sort of, massive wealth transfer from probably the poor to the
final paragraph just says the best available data suggests that what we decide over the next 10 years will determine the long-term fate of human civilization.
603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Do you buy this? That economic growth could possibly lead to a collapse of a society? I don't know. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
Carl Wattner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Wattner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Giles Gibson with the Week in Review. The Tokyo Olympics got into full swing this week, with records broken in sporting arenas and in Japan's coronavirus outbreak. The Japanese government expanded the current state of emergency as COVID-19 cases in Tokyo hit all-time highs. Here's John Matthews in the Japanese capital.
More than 3,800 new COVID-19 cases were reported in Tokyo on Thursday, with more than 10,000 reported nationwide. While official numbers only show 539 ongoing severe cases, hospitals say that number only counts those who are near death, and that patient beds are beginning to fill up. Neighboring prefectures to Tokyo are also seeing record-high caseloads. Their governors are set to call for a new state of emergency in their areas. The Japanese Medical Association has suggested it be made a nationwide declaration. No sign yet this will impact the ongoing Olympic Games. Organizers say competitions are unconnected to the ongoing uptick, while domestic commentators say they're encouraging people to ignore government requests to stay indoors.
There was a big shock in gymnastics as American star Simone Biles pulled out of the individual all-round competition, saying she needs to focus on her mental health. She'd already withdrawn from the team event earlier in the week. Phoebe Amoroso has more.
This is the second event Simone Biles has pulled out of at the Tokyo Olympics. Earlier in the week, she withdrew partway through the women's team final to focus on her mental health. Her replacement in the all-round, Jade Carey, placed 9th in the qualifiers, coming 3rd amongst Team USA competitors. Biles has yet to announce whether she will compete next week in the individual events, all of which she has qualified for. At the start of the Games, Biles had 6 medals in her sights, to add to the 4 golds she won in Rio.
A select committee in the US House of Representatives heard emotional testimony this week from police officers who were on duty on the 6th of January when a mob of Trump supporters attacked the US Capitol. Our Washington correspondent Caroline Malone has the details.
It's almost 7 months since a mob smashed its way into the heart of America's democracy, breaking down doors and shattering windows. But for the police officers who tried to protect the US Capitol on the 6th of January, it feels like it was just yesterday. Here's Sergeant Aquilino Gonell of the Capitol Police.
What we were suggested that day was like something from a medieval battle. We fought hand to hand, inch by inch, to prevent an invasion of the Capitol by a violent mob intent on subverting our democratic process.
Republicans labelled the proceedings a sham after Democrat Speaker Nancy Pelosi blocked the appointment of 2 GOP congressmen to the committee.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and of course you're invited to join us here. The number is 603-283-6160, especially if you buy into these doomsday predictions.
Doomsday!
Being made by a woman who is tied in with some pretty big movers and shakers groups of, industry executives and politicians around the planet, including the World Economic Forum, who we've talked about with their so-called Great Reset plans that they've been trying to push hard ever since COVID started, but they've been pushing it for years before that. And also, you looked up, we've been doing a little bit of research on her here during the break there. Captain, you looked up this Rome group, Club of Rome.
Clubofrome.org.
And she's also a member of?
Yeah, it says, this is word salad if I ever heard it. The Club of Rome Impact Hubs harness the diversity of the club's activities and perspectives of its members and the ecosystem which they belong. They serve as a creative impact space where Club of Rome members, associations, and partners share transformational thought leadership and co-design solutions for impact.
Wow, that does sound like some crazy marketing speak right there.
So what do you do? What would you say you do here?
I'm going to translate that to thought. What was it? Thought leadership? Was that what the term was?
Thought leadership and co-design solutions for impact.
These are the elites who, they believe that they should tell people what to do because they're so smart. I mean, this woman is obviously intelligent. She's also attractive.
She is pretty hot.
And so, people are going to listen to her. And she's got the whole greenhouse gas emissions, environmental calamity, speech that she does. And I've got a story here from The Guardian that was just published 7 days ago.
Real quick, while I'm on this Club of Rome bit, they have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll call them blocks with labels on it at their website. Well, the first is climate planetary emergency. The second one is emerging new civilization. The next one is the next one is reframing economics. Economics don't need to be reframed; they just are.
They want to change how business is done, and they're not really clear with what that means.
And their next one is rethinking finance, and then the last one is youth and young leadership. So, of course, they're trying to appeal their ideas to the youth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to read this whole story from The Guardian, but going through it, I was trying to find more of because the Vice story that you had introduces this woman.
Yep.
They say, here's all her credentials. She did this research on this old study from MIT from the 70s that says collapse is coming.
Here's her conclusions.
And she says that, yes, that's going to happen based on what she's, researched, but there's no evidence of, she doesn't explain why. She just accepts, she presumes you're going to accept what she says of, business as usual is going to lead to a collapse.
Right.
If we keep going in this direction, it will collapse society, and without really explaining that. So I'm hoping that this story will shed at least some light onto what she's alleging. And they talk about, she says that, so I'm just going to jump into the middle of this. She says, the key finding of my study is that we still have a choice to align with the scenario that does not end in collapse. With innovation in business along with new developments by governments and civil society, continuing to update the model provides another perspective on the challenges and opportunities we have to create a more sustainable world. Now, that also sounds like word salad to me. But what she's saying here is new developments by governments. When has that ever happened? When have the governments of the world ever done anything new or innovative?
They
figured out how to have a website at some point.
Other than taking over, space exploration, which, isn't really them creating anything new. They just took over it.
They're leaving that behind, though. You got Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Virgin Atlantic.
Yeah.
SpaceX.
And I would argue that they never should have been in it in the first place,
Agreed.
Of course.
And it would have happened without them.
Yes.
It probably would have happened faster and cheaper without them. So governments don't innovate. They control.
Yes.
That's sort of what governments do. And she is whitewashing that because that's her job. Her job is to present whatever this is, this great reset, this new society, these changes, this update the model that she's talking about here. The model in a free market would change naturally. Right. If people wanted to do something different or they wanted a different sort of product or service or whatever, then new people would enter the market. They'd provide that. Innovators would come in. That would happen naturally.
Right.
But when somebody like this, a central planner, says, update the model, she means force this new idea, whatever it is, and they're not clear on what that is, force this new idea down people's throats. And she goes on. She says the primary concern of the MIT study from the 70s have been supplanted. Quote, resource scarcity has not been the challenge people thought it would be in the 70s. So she's admitting that. Mm-hmm. She's admitting that, okay, well, we haven't run out of X. We still have oil. We still have these other things. And population growth has not been the scare it was in the 90s. Now, she says, the concern is pollution and how it perfectly aligned with what climate scientists are saying. So this is the new scare. We're supposed to believe this one when she's admitting that the old scares didn't come true?
Of course. Well, those are the old scares. So, yeah, you got to be scared of this new thing now.
She goes on, they say that regarding fossil fuels, despite some efficiencies, consumption and emissions have only increased. And she says the MIT study pointed that out. And then it goes on to the scenarios, which are you touched on these earlier, BAU, business as usual. And then there's, they say that under this particular theory, growth would stall and combine with population collapse, but it doesn't explain why they think that would be the case. Why would growth just stall?
Yeah, so
without an outside force like the government mandating that it stop.
Now, I haven't read the actual study from 1972.
It's probably not worth it.
There was a link to it, but I wonder...
It's just a bunch of academic geeks, making predictions that so far haven't come true.
I mean, I can predict that the dollar will collapse in 12 years.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
So what year is it now?
Get your crypto now.
21.
Get your gold.
So 31, 32. 2033, I predict the U.S. dollar will fully collapse and be worth zero or less. Now, what do I base that on? Nothing. Mm. Right? But, let's revisit this in 12 years.
Sure.
See if I was right.
She says that the study says, adding that pursuing continuous growth is not possible. Sustainability is the answer, she says. Now, this is another buzzword, which you hear a lot from people in government, people who want to control. Oh, you're growing too fast, Mr. Businessman. You need to be sustainably growing.
I don't understand why. I guess I could see... I would think from a government perspective that they would actually enjoy economic growth because, well, then they get to tax
more taxes.
And that kind of a thing.
But they're also really into control. And
that's true.
And that's, for whatever reason, it turns these people on. It turns these government goons. They love telling people what to do, from people all the way at the top in D.C. all the way down to the janitor here at City Hall.
They're the I'm Right Brigade.
So let me go on here. There's the story wraps up with a quote from her. She says, there's a sustainable way of creating value and prosperity that also has immense economic potential. Doing good can still yield a profit. In fact, it always does. If you're doing good work, if you're creating a good product or a service, you will profit from that because people will buy it.
Yes.
And as long as you're allowed to increase, increase the cost of the product above the cost of making it, then you'll make a product.
Other people will benefit from it as well. Like as your, we'll call it a business, as your business grows, you are going to hire people or otherwise subcontract some tasks and things out to other people, right? And so other people benefit from your growth and your profit as well.
And the term sustainability, it gets thrown around a lot, but the reality is if you don't run your business in a sustainable way, you're going to go out of business. So, I mean, for instance, if you're in the paper business, right? Like you've got to keep planting trees if you want to keep making paper.
Yep.
And if you harvest too many trees before you've planted enough to, make a new crop, you're going out of business or you're going to get hurt big time as you try to figure out what to do next. So you've got to be sustainable. That's just sort of a natural business incentive. The only businesses that aren't sustainable in a lot of cases are the ones that are that are given monopolies by governments, or using government land leases where they strip mine it or whatever. They have no incentive to take care of it. There's more coming up.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live Saturday show. Number for you, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's Ian.
And the captain.
Don't forget.
Sorry, I was just trying to look for, something that indicated what the original prediction was. of this
of the MIT
of this collapse. Yeah, the 1972 prediction. I couldn't find it readily because all of the searches are dominated by articles like this one and the one that you got. So I wasn't able to find anything because I often point out to people that there's a difference between government and society, right? And so they're talking about societal collapse. It's like, well, do they mean societal collapse? Because society is just people.
Society is, I mean, if you want to look up the definition, it's a voluntary association of individuals who've come together for a common purpose. That's what a society is.
Yes.
The government is not a voluntary association. It is, well, I mean, certainly the people in the government volunteered to join it, but then they forced their view of life on the rest of us.
Right.
So it's not, we're not in a voluntary society here. We're in a forced prison state, basically.
Well, and like to your point on societies, they used to call, there used to be groups called friendly societies where people would get together for things like, oh, I don't know, medical care.
Correct.
Like, you know, groups
mutual aid societies.
Mutual aid society. Yeah, then they would pool their money and hire a doctor for this group of people and pay his salary for a year. And ironically, folks got away from that because doctors complained to government that they weren't making enough money. And so government started putting in rules for doctors to make them more money somehow because they lobbied and got their way or whatever. So... Sorry, tangent.
Oh, no worries. Again, if you want to join the show, 603-283-6160. Also, if you are of a liberty mindset, if you're an individual who rejects the initiation of force and agree to abide by the ethics of the non-aggression principle, then you can go and put your voluntarist ideas into action at liberty.menu. And it's a way for freedom-loving people to, promote what they do. Whatever it is that you got going on, whether it's a business or digital content of which you are the creator, an event that you want to promote, liberty.menu can help you do that. And it's free to use. You can use code FTL and get a Free Talk Live listener badge over at liberty.menu. So we were looking into this woman who is mentioned, she's sort of the focus of these stories. There was one in Vice, there's one in The Guardian, where they're trotting this out. And it's interesting that it's being reported in more than one place, so it suggests that there's an effort here to put this fear-mongering out, like, oh, MIT, it's a college of smart people. And
she did it for her master's thesis at Harvard.
Right, and she's got, all kinds of degrees, very educated younger woman. She's actually 39. And she is being promoted as, this savior of, okay, well, just listen to her. And we need to do things differently. And so I'm going to get back into this wrap-up here. What she says needs to change. What is it that needs to happen to avoid a societal collapse, according to this woman? And so this is in The Guardian story. I'm just going to read this paragraph one more time. There's a sustainable way of creating value and prosperity that also has immense economic potential, she says. Doing good can still yield a profit. In fact, we are seeing examples of that happening right now. Expanding those efforts now creates a world full of opportunity that is also sustainable. And again, if your business isn't sustainable, you're going to go out of business.
It's not going to last long.
So what does this actually mean? What is this buzzword all about? It's about them telling you how to run your business.
Well, you said... her phrasing, I think, was, you can still do good. It's like, well, who decides what good is according to her?
Yeah. So here's more. It's not just going to be her. It's whoever's involved in the World Economic Forum, those people. The pandemic, she believes, has even shown the world what might be possible. Quote, we're totally capable of making huge changes, and we've seen with the pandemic, but we have to act now if we're to avoid costs much greater than we're seeing. Again, very nebulous language here. She's talking about changes. She's talking about big changes, but she's not clear. And this is what the World Economic Forum was doing over the last year with promoting the Great Reset. Not being clear at all in what it actually means, what they're talking about. I mean, we know what it means. It means the government regulating and controlling, selecting the players, keeping innovators out, doing things the way they say it should be done. And, of course, those of us who care about freedom are not in favor of that happening.
Well, and they're not in favor of allowing freedom.
No.
Period. I mean,
no, that's not what this is about.
Doesn't seem to be, anyway.
So, again, if you want to join the show here, you can. Let's go to Major Payne. He's on the line in Michigan. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Major Payne. Hello, Major Payne. I hear that open line.
Major.
He was there. Major Payne going once.
Hello, fellas.
There, you're on the
I
air.
have an update from the big giant head.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Wait, who's
Evidently,
the big giant head?
There is a giant revolt. I heard about this from ASS. That's the American Sausage Society.
You
The
just kind of...
American pigs are revolting against Smithfield manufacturing. The Chinese
I don't know what happened to your voice there, but it sounds like you're not talking into your phone anymore, so it's very hard to hear you.
I am?
There
Can
you
you
go.
hear me?
That sounds much better. So you're saying Americans
All right,
are revolting
closer,
against what?
closer. Oh, the American Sausage Society. The acronym is ASS.
Oh, is
Yeah,
that
there's
is that a
American
reference to
pigs are
government? You know how they
revolting.
say that, you know, watching the legislature in action is like watching a sausage being made? Is that what the reference is?
Pretty much,
Okay.
yeah. But there's a giant meat supplier, Smithfield. It's a Chinese corporation. I think the American pigs are revolting because they're tired of being blamed for the baloney virus here. They're blaming it on Chinese chickens being put in the meat.
I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
Well, think about it. It wouldn't take too long to come to you. They're putting chicken and all kinds of byproducts in real good meat. American pigs should
You're
be
saying this
insulted
one
by
company is? The Smithfield company is doing this?
No, most all of them are. The only thing they care about is shelf life.
So putting chicken into meat is going to extend shelf life?
No. What? Think about it. They blamed the whole virus on the chicken farmers in China.
I've never heard
Right.
this. I've heard that it was a bat or something like
Yeah, I
that.
thought
They
it
were
was-
experimenting on
Well,
bats.
but
The
it was
Wuhan.
across. They didn't know who it was. They were blaming it on everything: the wet market, the birds, the Wuhan flu.
Okay, but where are you hearing that they're putting chicken into meat? Into like beef?
Oh, this was all a spoof, dude. I just made this up. I'm yanking
Oh,
your
okay.
chain.
All right, so what are you calling about today,
So yeah,
Major?
what's the point of the call?
Oh, well, I was just having fun with all the jerking around they're doing with us. This is the baloney virus. This whole damn thing has been ground up and manufactured.
Okay, I got you. Thanks, Major Payne, for that. I
My
appreciate
baloney
it.
has
Glad
a
we
first name.
cleared that up because I couldn't find anything about chicken being put into beef.
I actually looked up the American Sausage Society. Much to my chagrin, it doesn't exist. Yeah,
Now that was funny. I liked that.
I would have loved to see if there was an actual, organization with the acronym ASS. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that was funny. But they have been putting things into meat. Remember the slime story? Remember the slime?
Meat slime. Yep.
So I mean, it's not unheard of that.
I mean, that's how large production, people call them restaurants, but fast food, right? That's how they still use the pink slime. That's how you get a whole bunch of these chicken sandwiches, these fried foods, that type of thing from these fast food restaurants. It's all that. There's also meat glue. Do you remember that?
Ooh, no.
That's
what
where,
is that?
so like, as the butchers are trimming, chunks off of things to make, like, I don't know, a pork loin, they trim some pieces off. Well, sometimes there's some pretty big pieces, and so
Grind
they
that
just take.
up.
Well, no, they just take all the larger pieces and they use this stuff called meat glue. It's exactly what you think it is. It's glue that's supposedly digestible, and they'll glue these couple, 2, 3 pieces together to make one more pork loin.
Amazing.
And package it as
Wow.
if it were a whole pork loin, and then you eat it, unbeknownst to you.
Wow. And by the way, pink slime was back in the news in 2019. So it's still out there. 603-283-6160. So again, back to the the buzzwords here. The story here from The Guardian talking about these changes, huge changes that people like the World Economic Forum and what was the other group?
The Rome
Group or Working Group or something like that? Group of
Club?
Rome? Club of Rome. That's what it was. These people who, they're so educated, they know what's best. And look out. As soon as somebody tells you they know what's best, you've got a control freak, you've got a sociopath, possible psychopath on your hands. If it's best, then go ahead and advocate for it and let people make their own choices about whether or not they want to whether or not they want to adopt this for their business. If it's best, they'll do it. If it turns out that it was best and they didn't do it, then they'll probably go out of business if that was indeed the best idea. But the reality is, in the market, people try different ideas. Some of them work out, some of them don't. And that's okay. 603-283-6160 is the number here. You can share your thoughts, your calls, coming up in hour number 2 of the live Saturday edition of Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Giles Gibson with the Week in Review. The Tokyo Olympics got into full swing this week, with records broken in sporting arenas and in Japan's coronavirus outbreak. The Japanese government expanded the current state of emergency as COVID-19 cases in Tokyo hit all-time highs. Here's John Matthews in the Japanese capital.
More than 3,800 new COVID-19 cases were reported in Tokyo on Thursday, with more than 10,000 reported nationwide. While official numbers only show 539 ongoing severe cases, hospitals say that number only counts those who are near death, and that patient beds are beginning to fill up. Neighboring prefectures to Tokyo are also seeing record-high caseloads. Their governors are set to call for a new state of emergency in their areas. The Japanese Medical Association has suggested it be made a nationwide declaration. No sign yet this will impact the ongoing Olympic Games. Organizers say competitions are unconnected to the ongoing uptick, while domestic commentators say they're encouraging people to ignore government requests to stay indoors.
There was a big shock in gymnastics as American star Simone Biles pulled out of the individual all-round competition, saying she needs to focus on her mental health. She'd already withdrawn from the team event earlier in the week. Phoebe Amoroso has more.
This is the second event Simone Biles has pulled out of at the Tokyo Olympics. Earlier in the week, she withdrew partway through the women's team final to focus on her mental health. Her replacement in the all-round, Jade Carey, placed 9th in the qualifiers, coming 3rd amongst Team USA competitors. Biles has yet to announce whether she will compete next week in the individual events, all of which she has qualified for. At the start of the Games, Biles had 6 medals in her sights, to add to the 4 golds she won in Rio.
A select committee in the US House of Representatives heard emotional testimony this week from police officers who were on duty on the 6th of January when a mob of Trump supporters attacked the US Capitol. Our Washington correspondent Caroline Malone has the details.
It's almost 7 months since a mob smashed its way into the heart of America's democracy, breaking down doors and shattering windows. But for the police officers who tried to protect the US Capitol on the 6th of January, it feels like it was just yesterday. Here's Sergeant Aquilino Gonell of the Capitol Police.
What we were subjected that day was like something from a medieval battle. We fought hand to hand, inch by inch to prevent an invasion of the Capitol by a violent mob intent on subverting our democratic process.
Republicans labelled the proceedings a sham after Democrat Speaker Nancy Pelosi blocked the appointment of 2 GOP congressmen to the committee.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. US President Joe Biden announced that American troops will step back from their combat role in Iraq by the end of this year. Here's FSN's Rebecca Foster.
There are around 2,500 U.S. troops in Iraq right now. They've spent the last few years helping to root out ISIS fighters. But after a White House meeting with Iraq's Prime Minister, U.S. President Joe Biden confirmed American soldiers will be stepping back from the front lines.
Our role in Iraq will be to be available to continue to train, to assist, and to deal with ISIS as it arrives. But we are not going to be by the end of the year in a combat mission.
While ISIS has been defeated militarily in both Iraq and Syria, this year has seen multiple rocket and drone attacks inside Iraq. No groups have claimed responsibility, but it's believed Iran-backed militias are behind the strikes. Rebecca Foster, Washington.
And finally, the UK government announced this week that fully vaccinated travellers from the US and EU will be allowed to enter England without the need to quarantine on arrival. Our UK correspondent John Beaver reports.
Up to now, only those vaccinated in the UK are recognised by the increasingly complex travel rules here. It means for those fully vaccinated, there's no need to quarantine when returning from more than 100 countries on the green and amber travel list. From the 4th of August, those rules will also apply to people vaccinated in the United States and European Union. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps said the move will reunite people living in the US and European countries with their family and friends in the UK. John Beaver reporting.
There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story, and that was the Week in Review. Giles Gibson reporting.
Delighted health insurance executives gather in an outdoor coliseum to watch a patient battle cancer. And a self-conscious flasher is fully clothed under his trench coat. This is the Onion Week in Review. While stressing that they would absolutely never consider doing anything of the sort, German leaders quietly admitted this week that they were pretty sure they could carry out another Holocaust if they ever truly wanted to. Quickly noting that the Holocaust was an atrocity that should never be repeated, no matter how easy it would be to do so, almost all members of the German parliament discreetly conceded that with their country's dominance of Eurozone GDP, pulling off the unthinkable genocide would not be the least bit difficult.
I'm just saying, hypothetically, that we very easily could do it. I mean, we definitely have the infrastructure, and the concentration camps are still standing.
In other news, a so-called Christian has an erection. A new study finds more children are growing up in single-parent households. And a real-life Nancy Drew traces the source of her HPV.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and of course you can join us here as we kick off the second hour of this live Saturday episode of Free Talk Live. The number for you, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. If you're just tuning in, we were talking about, and you can talk about this or bring up anything that you want, but we were talking about control freaks in government and academia that want to tell you how to live your life, want to tell you how to run your business, are spreading fear about it, and scary things might happen. You should listen to us. You should do what we say or else.
Because we have credentials.
But it's not clear what they're saying exactly. It's not clear what they mean. What they want. Although I imagine these things will become more clear over time. Now,
we have been educated by institutions such as Harvard.
Yeah, right now it's
Harvard.
Right now, they're just using buzzwords like sustainability, environmental blah, 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 and talking about how society is going to collapse if you don't do what they say.
Collapse.
So let's go to your calls and your thoughts here. We've got Monty on the line calling us from the road in Kentucky, Tennessee. Hello, Monty.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. When I heard you talk about people advocating for something,
really pushed my button because when I was there on 1/6, I was advocating for life, liberty, and justice, and I'll be doing the same thing again on 9/18 when we go back.
Oh,
and
there's another date scheduled for the Capitol?
Yes, there
Interesting.
is 9/18.
Hmm.
And when I was there, I was speaking. I wasn't on the stage. I had a megaphone, but I was speaking, and I was advocating for things like life, liberty, and justice. How about justice for General Flynn? Where is his justice at? He was railroaded. The people who railroaded him have not faced any penalties. They have lied in front of Congress. They have lied to judges.
Who?
Judges.
General who?
Flynn.
I don't know who that is.
Flynn. Okay, he's the former head of the security apparatus for President Obama, and then he was also, for a very short time, headed President Trump's security apparatus until he was railroaded by people like Jim Comey. And anybody who doesn't know General Flynn, I mean, come on, you're pulling my leg, right?
No, I really don't pay any attention to all these politicians. They're all a bunch of scumbags to me.
Okay, well,
I mean, don't you think
agree that
politicians
there
are
a lot of-
losers and liars?
A lot of them are, but the problem is with the judges, and we, the people, have got to start holding these people accountable because
So let me ask you this: where do I find out more information about this 9/18 thing? Because I'm not able to pull up I'm looking for 9/18 DC protest.
It was announced today. It was announced today,
Mm-hmm.
and on the War Room, Steve Bannon's War Room. It's a Liberty group, and they are right now. 9/18 is going to be the next day we're going there. They have been having rallies across the land. Well, basically in DC, excuse me. They had a protest at the jail there for the political prisoners, over 500 political prisoners that we have in the DC jail. And shortly thereafter, the Congress critters, they went there to try to get in, and they could not. They held another protest. It was somewhere in DC. I don't know if it's Justice Department or somewhere else like that. And they are doing things. They are bringing crowds of people, and I think this thing on 9/18 is going to be big because I didn't hear about the other ones, but I have heard about 9/18. I'm going to go back.
So what do you expect is going to be different, perhaps this time?
You broke up.
What do you expect might be different on 9/18 as opposed to January 6th? Do we lose you, Monty? Ah, shoot.
He's cutting out.
Yeah, we're. I think you're in a bad cell there. Are you still there?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. There was a lot of infiltration by people in the FBI and Antifa. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not.
Yeah, we got you. We got you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, I've been hearing you guys good. There was a lot of infiltration, and the guy with the horns, he was pretty entertaining, actually. The shaman, but there's all kinds of people like that around there. There were people with signs saying that President Trump is basically a scumbag, and he was standing right amongst the patriots there, and nobody would raise a hand to this guy. And I pointed out, to a lot of people that, hey, these people are serious. They will come amongst us with their signs denigrating who we're there to support. And nothing will happen to them. And yet, if we get alone at night with the Antifa around, they will beat the crap out of us. So these people are serious, and we are not serious. We have got to start getting serious. And I believe that the main thing that we've got to get serious about is holding these judges accountable, because the judges are
How do you hold them accountable? What mechanisms do you use? What things do you deploy to hold them accountable?
We use the United States Constitution. It does not say we the judges. It does not say we the politicians. It says we the people. And yes, we the people can hold anyone accountable. If we look back,
I've yet to see evidence of this. I mean, the federal government does whatever the hell it wants to do. It doesn't matter who's in charge. It doesn't matter if it's Donald Trump. It doesn't matter if it's Joe Biden. They still put innocent, peaceful people behind bars. They destroy people's lives. They destroy people's businesses. I mean, what makes you think that the Constitution is going to make any difference whatsoever? These people don't care about what the Constitution says.
Great, that's fine, because a long time ago we used to tar and feather people. We used to do all kinds of other things to them also. We had a whiskey rebellion that was put down by George Washington because the people were pissed off about taxes. They had a rebellion against George Washington about taxes way back when. We have not had that recently. I think we need to start moving that way.
No, I'm not in favor of violence. I don't think you're suggesting that, but I'm not in favor of violence. But I do like the idea of just forgetting about this whole federal government thing. I mean, wouldn't you agree that it's been a total failure?
Not really.
No? Why not?
No. Well, because if we didn't have a federal government that had a pretty good up until now military, then I think other countries would have walked all over us.
Really?
We are a country
you think Americans can't defend themselves without having a federal government?
I think they could, but I mean that's going to get really messy.
So
really
you think?
quick.
Hold on, I just want to see if I'm following you here. You think that you need to have a multi-trillion-dollar massive bureaucracy in order to defend yourself?
Now you're putting words in my mouth. Now you're putting words in my mouth.
Well, isn't that what the military is? I mean, it's a humongous bureaucracy.
They are over-bloated. They're hugely bloated beyond what they really need to be.
Well,
and,
who's proposing to whittle them down? I mean, the Democrats and Republicans want to see the government military get bigger.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
Why don't we just give it up? I mean, don't you think that if, like, let's say New Hampshire or Texas or California or wherever were to secede from the United States, especially like Texas and New Hampshire, there's plenty of guns in Texas and New Hampshire. I mean, don't you think they could take care of themselves?
I think a better idea would be to make California get out of the union, just like kick them out, and then anytime some communist, Marxist.
Okay, but I don't want to be in the union.
Yeah, why don't we?
Can I leave too?
Can we just dissolve the union?
You can, sure you can.
But I don't want to be in California either. So can New Hampshire leave? Is that all right?
No, I don't think so.
Whoa! What are you going to do?
Well, like I said, we kick the California out, and
no. What if New Hampshire says, "All right, we're gone too"?
Well, I'd say then California's that way.
No, we're leaving. What are you going to do about it?
Well, we still have a federal government, right? I mean,
I don't want it.
Okay.
What are you saying they're going to do? Are they going to start killing people in New Hampshire? Are they going to roll in tanks, drop a bomb? What are they going to do?
No, there's other means they can do.
Like what?
Well, they could start imposing taxes on exports or something like that. I mean, I haven't looked.
We're going to ignore them.
Exactly what
we're seceding from the United States. Screw their taxes.
Well, we already have places like that in America now. They're called Indian reservations.
Yeah, I don't think the Indians are too happy about that.
I don't think putting New Hampshireites on reservations is the answer to the problem either.
But I am interested in seeing what happens on 9/18. Thanks for bringing that to my attention, Monty. I appreciate hearing from you. I don't think that protesting is going to change anything. If it did, they'd make it illegal.
I still want to know what he thinks is going to hold these judges accountable.
Well, I want to know what everybody else thinks. So we're going to get to those calls. Your calls are coming up. Thank you, Monty. 603-283-6160. You can join us here. This is Free Talk Live.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, and of course you can bring up what you want here. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
The Lord, Dr. Reverend Captain Kickass is also joining.
And Free Talk Live is brought to you by Bitcoin.com. It's time to start learning about cryptocurrency because it's just likely going to get more popular over time.
And again, if you get in now, you're still an early adopter.
I think that's true. I mean, we can't guarantee what the prices are going to do, but it certainly seems like there's some growth.
As far as technology is concerned, it's still in its infancy.
Yeah, room for growth there for sure, I think. But you can go to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page, and then you'll learn about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and cryptocurrency in general. What is it that makes it different? What makes it new? What makes it interesting? What makes it better than the old money systems that we've been stuck with for generations? Bitcoin.com has that information, and you can watch as short of a 3-minute long video and get the basics. If you want to dig in deeper, they've got more videos, more information there for you. If you want to get the latest news headlines anytime about crypto, go to news.bitcoin.com. That's news.bitcoin.com.
They actually had something. I didn't get to read the full thing, so I don't have a full understanding, but apparently there's a Bitcoin Cash sidechain that's compatible with Ethereum.
Okay, so, I've heard about this Smart BCH thing, but
that's
I don't know
what it is. Yeah, Smart BCH.
It's compatible with Ethereum or competing with Ethereum?
No, like it's supposed to be so that they can cooperate.
Oh, interesting.
So
okay.
Imagine writing, a series of smart contracts on Ethereum where BCH is the currency of choice. That's being, that's in part of the transaction.
Yeah,
that's
I'm interested
the way I understand
in that.
it, but I'll do some more research on it.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what that's all about because I've seen the buzz about it, but I don't know anything about it. But we don't have time to get into crypto right now. We got your calls to get through. Your calls and thoughts are welcome anytime here on Free Talk Live. Jill is on the line in Virginia. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Jill. Jill in Virginia, going once. Jill in Virginia going twice. Well, thank you for that. Let's go on here. Mike is listening in Maine to WLOB. Mike, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Listen, I called to see if you guys have been paying attention to this little venture that Pelosi's on to expand the powers of the Capitol Police.
Yeah, we heard about that, that they're actually going to expand out to California and Florida, opening offices.
They've already set up satellite stations in Florida and California.
Yep.
Now, this is all on account of January 6th, she's saying. And the purview of these guys in these satellite places are going to be to investigate any threats against Congress.
That's what I've heard.
Well, number one, that's the damn job of the FBI, okay?
Right.
That's why there's one in every damn state.
Yeah, as though they don't have enough federal police out there. Not only are there the FBI, but there's also what they call the Federal Protective Service that actually works protecting FBI buildings and other federal government buildings. So there's plenty of federal cops out there already.
Yeah, but get this, man. The regular budget was $88.4 million.
Of the Capitol Police, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. She just increased the budget to $603.9 million.
Woo!
Ouch, that is fire.
Somebody's getting a raise.
Yeah. And they're hiring 2,200 new cops, new officers.
Jeez. Where are they going to get them from?
And 450 civilian jobs. Now, like I say, this is supposed to be to prevent the threats against Congress.
Mm.
Now, from what I get, the National Security Council is behind this. I think this is a great idea. Look, this is the beginning of a new federal takeover of law enforcement.
Mm.
You know, and their purview is supposed to be, according to the NSC, to root out national extremist organizations or people who have dissent with the federal government.
Sure.
This is a damn dark road we're headed down here. I'm going to clue you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, look, these people.
These guys are out of control, man.
They absolutely are, and that's why it's time to leave. That's why it's time for New Hampshire and Maine and other states to pack it up and say, you know what, we don't want anything to do with you anymore.
And
what do you think?
This new use of the word extremist when
it's not that
when pointed at folks who reside in the landmass commonly known as the United States of America is disturbing to me, because this country was founded by extremists, and secessionists, and so for anybody who quote represents unquote what is supposed to be the interests of this supposed country to now point the extremist gun at individuals within their own borders is BS in my book.
Yeah, but it certainly wins some political points with the people on the left who are just deathly afraid of anybody who might want to, be independent.
Did I hear you guys say earlier, that article you were reading, that it was the Rome group? What is the name of it?
Clubofrome.org.
Boy, isn't that perfect? Think of the cultural structure of Rome. The Roman elite, the Roman workers who wait on the elite, the Praetorian Guard to protect the elite, and the slaves around the empire to produce the wealth.
I think that's exactly what they want. Mike, great call, man. Thanks for sharing your thoughts tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I always reference Rome when comparing the empire. Like our empire, the current empire that we live under, which is the United States government.
How long did Rome last as an empire? Let's go in the meantime to Robert in South Carolina. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Robert.
Hello, sir. How are you?
What's on your mind tonight, Robert?
Well, I just wanted to say very quickly that actually government is a syndicated operation, and it's logical.
Like a crime syndicate, yes.
No, not all syndicates are crime syndicates. Only
but they are
very tiny.
That's what the government is.
You see what happens is you've got to have somebody in control of things. I mean, to manage things.
No, you don't. No, I have no interest in that. Why would I have to have that? My life is fine without government agencies.
You're gonna have gangs and mayhem going on.
We have a gang. They're called the police.
There's something much worse than the police. People who are not responsible to you. The police
aren't responsible, dude. They're not responsible at all. Have you ever tried to hold these people accountable for what they do? There's no accountability whatsoever. Why do you think there are huge protests out there that are anti-police? Because they have no accountability. They can get away with murder. They can get away with rape. They can just do whatever they want to do.
They can't.
You're living in a fantasy world, dude. You don't know what you're talking about.
All right, if they start doing things like that, they'd be put up in front of a judge and they'd be convicted and probably get...
Dude, they don't even get charged in most cases. Derek Chauvin is an outlier. His case is unusual. Most of the time when the police kill somebody in the line of duty, it's usually like at least 1,000 people, most of whom are completely innocent, every single year. When the police kill somebody or set somebody's house ablaze or, throw a gas grenade into a baby's crib or shoot a dog or whatever other destructive things that they do frequently, they are never held responsible because most of the time the police investigate themselves and they say, nope, looks like we did everything by the book. Everything here's fine. So, you're living in a fantasy land.
Technology is here now, and anybody who has that on film because of their smartphone just presents that to the judge.
Sorry, bro, it doesn't make any difference. It makes a difference as far as the PR is concerned because you can show what the truth is, finally. You can show that the person who's saying the cop beat them is actually telling the truth.
Yep.
But ultimately, as far as the system is concerned, they don't care.
The Roman Empire lasted 1,960 years, according to an article. At least 1,000 years is the consensus on the internet.
I hope this one doesn't last that long. Thanks, Robert, for the call, though. More coming up. This is Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Giles Gibson with the Week in Review. The Tokyo Olympics got into full swing this week, with records broken in sporting arenas and in Japan's coronavirus outbreak. The Japanese government expanded the current state of emergency as COVID-19 cases in Tokyo hit all-time highs. Here's John Matthews in the Japanese capital.
More than 3,800 new COVID-19 cases were reported in Tokyo on Thursday, with more than 10,000 reported nationwide. While official numbers only show 539 ongoing severe cases, hospitals say that number only counts those who are near death, and that patient beds are beginning to fill up. Neighboring prefectures to Tokyo are also seeing record-high caseloads. Their governors are set to call for a new state of emergency in their areas. The Japanese Medical Association has suggested it be made a nationwide declaration. No sign yet this will impact the ongoing Olympic Games. Organizers say competitions are unconnected to the ongoing uptick, while domestic commentators say they're encouraging people to ignore government requests to stay indoors.
There was a big shock in gymnastics as American star Simone Biles pulled out of the individual all-round competition, saying she needs to focus on her mental health. She'd already withdrawn from the team event earlier in the week. Phoebe Amoroso has more.
This is the second event Simone Biles has pulled out of at the Tokyo Olympics. Earlier in the week, she withdrew partway through the women's team final to focus on her mental health. Her replacement in the all-round, Jade Carey, placed 9th in the qualifiers, coming 3rd amongst Team USA competitors. Biles has yet to announce whether she will compete next week in the individual events, all of which she has qualified for. At the start of the Games, Biles had 6 medals in her sights, to add to the 4 golds she won in Rio.
A select committee in the US House of Representatives heard emotional testimony this week from police officers who were on duty on the 6th of January when a mob of Trump supporters attacked the US Capitol. Our Washington correspondent Caroline Malone has the details.
It's almost 7 months since a mob smashed its way into the heart of America's democracy, breaking down doors and shattering windows. But for the police officers who tried to protect the US Capitol on the 6th of January, it feels like it was just yesterday. Here's Sergeant Aquilino Gonell of the Capitol Police.
What we were subjected that day was like something from a medieval battle. We fought hand to hand, inch by inch, to prevent an invasion of the Capitol by a violent mob intent on subverting our democratic process.
Republicans labelled the proceedings a sham after Democrat Speaker Nancy Pelosi blocked the appointment of 2 GOP congressmen to the committee.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live Saturday show, number 603-283-6160, 603-283-6160. In the studio with you tonight, it's Ian.
The Reverend Captain Kickass is also here.
We will go to more of your calls and thoughts, and then there's all kinds of stuff in the news. The military now deployed in Sydney in regards to COVID enforcement.
There's no reason for military deployment because of something that most folks have over a 99% chance of recovering from.
Well, the reason they're deploying is because of disobedience. People are not doing what they're told to do. They're out there protesting.
There's only one way out of that, which is disobedience. They should be protesting.
Yeah, good for
More
them.
people should be joining those protests. If you're in Australia and you happen to be listening to us, go start and or join the protests.
I agree. We're going to go back to your calls and thoughts, though. You can bring up whatever's on your mind. Plus, what's the metaverse? That's a new buzzword being thrown around with the internet. We can talk about that. But Jill is actually with us here. She called back in, and you're back. Go ahead, Jill.
Hello. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. What I wanted to call about was crony capitalism. While I am completely for free enterprise and laissez-faire, and I'd have no desire to penalize a business for making a lot of money, I don't think government should get too chummy with business.
Agreed.
I think a lot of these partnerships between businesses and government involve the businessmen keeping their mouths shut and forking over the money. But what I think could be done to counteract this, once we got a complete laissez-faire society, what we could do is put into the Constitution that if the government had a contract with a business, a completely legitimate contract, like to make military uniforms for the military or something, such contract should not be in effect for more than 10 years at a time.
I see where you're coming from. You want to protect
for another 3 years.
Jill, I see where you're coming from. You want to protect cronyism. You want to make sure that there's bids for contracts and things like that. But if we had a laissez-faire society, wouldn't there be no government at all?
No, I don't think so. Government should protect man against force and violence and punish same. That's it.
But they don't do a good job at that.
Well, they don't do a very good job at it because they're too focused on other BS that they shouldn't be involved in.
I don't think they would be better at it even if they were focused on it. And here's why. Because governments, at least as we've known them, are not subject to competition. Yeah. So if they do a crappy job, like we were just talking about with Robert, with the police, just murdering people and setting homes on fire and raping and doing all kinds of damage to peaceful people's lives, if you don't like it, well, there's no other option for you. You're forced to use their so-called services.
The experience of human beings is one where the majority of human beings are motivated by incentives. Mm-hmm. And the idea of government, the whole entire outline of governments commonly known, as countries, lacks incentive for these governments to do anything except for whatever they want. They do not have incentive.
I'm not for anarchy, but I am for a limited government, and government should be constantly watched. It's like fire. It's useful and it's even necessary, but it has to be rigidly controlled.
Okay, but that hasn't worked. I mean, I get what you're saying. That's the old George Washington quote, government is like fire. It's, what is it? I forget the rest of it, but it's a dangerous servant or a fearful master or something like that. And so there's a lot of great quotes, but those same guys, when they had the reins of power, went right outside of the Constitution right away.
Look, evil is evil, whether or not it's institutionalized. And government is institutionalized evil. It is not a tool like a hammer or a saw, right? Government is not a tool. It is a bad idea that is antique and barbaric and should be done away with.
Well, then you'd have gang warfare in Hatfield and McCoy feuds. Don't go along with that.
Thank you, Jill, for the call tonight. I appreciate it. Look, I don't like the term anarchist or anarchy because I think it describes what you're against.
Right.
That's why I'd rather say I'm pro-peace than pro-war or anti-war.
Voluntarist, I think, is pretty good.
I like voluntarist. To me, it says that it means that you believe that all human interaction should be voluntary. And I get the concern that people have is that, what would things be like if we didn't have government? Then wouldn't there be warlords? Wouldn't there be dangerous gangs in the streets, as Robert had called in earlier and suggested? And, well, the reality is we have that now.
Yes.
Okay. And it's not just the police. There are also other gangs in places like Los Angeles or whatever, the Crips and the Bloods, and down south there was some other gang, the Latin Kings. I don't know if they still exist, but there's other gangs out there. There's like some redneck gang. I don't remember what that one was.
Yeah, there's many different versions of that.
The Hells Angels. I mean, you name it. There's plenty of gangs out there. So I mean, it's not to say that violence wouldn't go away in the absence of the state.
Right.
But it is to say that at least the services that they offer, that she was, promoting, like, government needs to do these few things. And that's sort of the small government perspective. It's the quote-unquote minarchist perspective that if only government just did these few things, we'd be better off. And I think we'd be better off if you didn't have $1 trillion, government and it was only, $100 million or something, then obviously it would be a lot less involved in our lives. So, I mean, I'm not against moving in that direction, but I am against just stopping and saying, well, now we've got this small government, so, everything's fine.
Right.
No, it's not fine. You still have a monopoly, and that's never a good thing.
Like, if you as a person can understand why having a huge government that is completely out of control, where, all the businesses are controlled by and approved by and licensed by said government, if you can get to a point where you're like, this is wrong, this shouldn't be, let's reduce it all down to, let's reduce it here, reduce it there. If you can get to a point where you're like, well, I think government should only provide these few. I don't understand why you can't take that extra step and recognize that what these final things you think that only government can do are just services and products. Yeah. That's all they are. If they are indeed necessary and valuable, people will pay for them.
Absolutely.
In the absence of this organization of institutionalized violence.
Not only would people pay for them, they would also have a contract for them.
Yes.
Which you don't get today. I mean, for all the bad things the cops have done, for all the evidence against them, for all the protests, all people can do is yell and scream. You were asking the guy about this protest coming up on 9/18 that he mentioned earlier tonight. The caller pointed out they're going back to the Capitol. He's mad about the judges. What's he going to do about it?
Gotta hold them judges accountable.
What are they going to do? Are you going to chant outside the judge's house?
Hold some signs?
Are you going to hold some signs? If you get violent, they're just going to get violent back. That's certainly not the solution. They don't care what you want because you don't have the ability to say, you know what, I'm taking my money and I'm going over here. Whereas in the marketplace, that's one of the most controlling factors on bad business is, hey, you had a bad experience? And actually, Bonnie just had one tonight off the air. She was trying to order some food from a local establishment, and she encountered a couple of staff members that were not very kind at this particular establishment. She said, you know what, I'm just going somewhere else.
Yep.
And you don't, I know somebody out there is yelling at their radio right now, well, if you don't like it, leave. And I'm sorry, but that's not an option either, and here's why. First of all, you have to ask the same people who you are disagreeing with for permission to leave. They don't like you.
And you have to pay them.
Yeah, there's that too. But, paying them is one thing, but you have to get their permission in the first place. And if they don't like you, they can just say, nope, we're going to deny you the ability to go somewhere else. So you can't.
Yeah, free people do not need the right paperwork or permission slip to be free.
That's right. You don't have to ask, or you shouldn't have to ask permission.
If you do, you're not free.
And if you do, let's say you do have a passport. I used to have one. They took it from me.
Yeah.
Why? Well, because they are alleging that I committed some sort of, victimless crime. And so therefore, they're worried I might leave. And so therefore, they take the passport.
Yep.
So they can take that thing away from you at any time. But even if you were able to leave, where would you end up? On just another government plantation with another monopoly of force ruling over you.
Yeah, the entire planet is claimed by one of the 200 or so countries and governments.
Yep,
There's nowhere you can go.
Are worse than others, some are better than others, but there's always somebody telling you what to do. And we need to get past that, and the only way to do it, in my opinion, is to concentrate our action in one place.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with AgristHosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to AgristHosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's AgristHosting.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. We're doing the live Saturday episode here. Of course, phones are open as always. You can bring up anything that you want. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio, it's Ian.
And the captain.
We're going to go back to your calls and thoughts, whether you want to talk about the corruption that is just native to the state and it's never going to go away. Even if you get a small government, it's still going to be a corrupt small government because, well, they're a monopoly. That's sort of the nature of the state. And they're a monopoly on violence. And if you don't believe me, go look it up. Barack Obama admitted it while he was president.
A constitutional scholar.
Yeah.
Barack Obama was. Right? So, like, he studied the Constitution.
And he's not wrong about saying the government is a monopoly on violence. And you know what? Monopolies, historically, have given crappy service, a crappy product, and they suck.
Well, and another thing about our most recent caller there, Jill, she was talking about crony capitalism. Right, and this is when...
And she was against it, rightfully.
Yes, and this is just when government is basically in control of your business. Or...
It's also specifically when they give special benefits to certain people in business over you.
What I wanted to point out is every business, unless you're in the, we'll call it the black market, perhaps some gray market, every business in the United States is crony capitalist. Every business. Well, because you have to get licensed and approved, and you have to jump through all sorts of governmental hoops before you can actually begin your business. See, in a free society, if me, Captain Kickass, wanted to start making kick-ass sandwiches and selling them, well, I would just start making some sandwiches in my kitchen, packaging them up and selling them.
Without asking
permission. And people would begin
permission.
to buy them. And as I made money, then perhaps I would hire some people. And then I would expand my brand and move into a nicer kitchen, and et cetera, and so on. And I wouldn't need any permission, any licensing from anybody to do it. It would just be its own organic self-regulating entity, because I would have other sandwich people, other sandwich businesses to compete with. So if I didn't do things better than everybody else, or at least as good as all the other competition, I would be out of business very quickly and moving on to hopefully some sort of business where I could be successful. No government necessary.
But what happens is if you start a business in your kitchen and you start making delicious food and you start selling it to people wherever it is you're selling it, eventually somebody's going to snitch you out to the state.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to come down, and they're going to come down on you hard. They're going to threaten you. They're going to use violence against you if necessary in order to get you to stop servicing your voluntary customers who are choosing to buy from you. They'll say, well, you don't have a health permit, and you don't have the right vent hood. You're like, I'm not using the vent. I'm making sandwiches. Well, you've got to have a vent hood if you're going to be you're running a commercial kitchen, and you've got to buy it from this company because we say so. You know, there's all kinds of stupid rules. And, of course, the bigger the city, the more the rules, the more the bureaucracy, the more the fees, the more the licensing. Yeah. And before you know it, you're out of business because you can't afford to jump through all the hoops.
Well, and a lot of businesses these days, you need to write up a full business plan.
Oh, my God.
And you need to go out and get not only licensing and insurance, but you also need to go out and get financing, meaning you have to go into debt before you before you even bring your product to market.
Yeah.
You have to go into debt before you can even open your frickin' doors to do any business whatsoever.
And what you're talking about here is a way that the government, these gang members, basically kick out the bottom rungs of the ladder of affluence from people. Because if you can't afford to do all those things, you just don't even start.
Right.
You don't get to start from scratch. You have to have all this money, like you said, investors' money, loans, and now you're in debt, and that's a real bad position to be in, to just try a thing, test out your dream, experiment. And if you didn't have to do those things, if you could just start small, start from home, then you know better, and you know better whether it's going to work or not, and you won't have to go all the way out on a limb. I mean, no wonder so few people get into business.
Yeah, and like entrepreneurs struggle with creating businesses because of all of this.
Yeah, sure.
Right? There's a running joke amongst entrepreneurs where you're not going to succeed until you fail a good 10 or 15 times.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps we could cut that back a little by eliminating this organization of violence known as government and let people begin businesses with their talents.
Let's go to your calls and thoughts. I totally agree. Of course, Captain, we go to David in New Mexico. He's on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, everything I have to say right now is in support of what you've been arguing the last number of minutes. So $5 million of taxpayer money was just stolen by one of the top, I don't know, number 3, number 4 most powerful politician in the state of New Mexico. And she was not rated, she was rated more politely than you were. But so, and this is not just state of New Mexico taxpayer money. Any of you listening, it's your taxpayer money because it was stolen from the Albuquerque public school system, which is one of the largest school districts in the United States.
So wait, you're saying that a politician embezzled funds and is actually, they're being prosecuted for it?
Well, they have a warrant was served. A warrant was served, and charges are pending, and hopefully it'll go through. But let me finish what I have to say. Is so this politician that is better than you just literally was served a warrant, searched her home because it's alleged that she appropriated $5 million over the last 10, 15 years that doesn't belong to her. In fact, it belonged to you. A Democrat House Majority Leader, Cheryl Williams Stapleton, and ironically, I've spent of my hundreds of hours that I spent up in committee meetings at the Capitol in Santa Fe, I spent about a dozen within 10 feet of her in her committee room that she chaired, and I was not impressed. But anyway. And so let me connect a couple dots. In effort to get rid of government, I've been alleging on your radio station for over a decade about the various corruptions in the state of New Mexico, which resulted in me saying goodbye to my children 14 years ago, not knowing I've never seen them again, and I've never seen them again. And it's because of the exact same reason as this woman got away with $5 million of your dollars. It's the exact same thing. And here's the simple recipe. A person gets into a position, whether appointed or elected or hired in your government, and then they use that position to do whatever they damn well please.
Sure.
Whether it's take $5 million of your dollars or traffic somebody's children. And let me remind you that Child Protective Services was not involved in my case. It was simply a private divorce, and through judges and therapists and lawyers, they managed to separate me from my children.
And for all the prosecutions, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference, because even if they end up putting this woman in jail, which, as you said, they've been very nice to her so far, so I wouldn't expect that's going to happen. She has to pay the money back or whatever. And thank you for the call tonight, David. But even if they do punish somebody, whether it's a cop that's abused a person or whatever, again, very rare that they punish one of their own. But if they do, well, that just opens up a seat for some new low-life scum to come in there and take the power.
Yeah, and people misunderstand frequently that I see in everyday life that aren't, of a philosophy of, liberty or freedom and that type of thing. They misunderstand. They believe that government officials, whether they're elected or hired, doesn't matter. They falsely believe that these people are working to solve the problems of everyday people. They're not. They're only working to solve their own problems. That's it. That's all they're working towards. They don't even have time as these people in these positions of power to focus on the everyday person's problems. They don't have time for that because they're too busy solving their own problems.
And benefiting themselves, and working hand in hand with corporations so they can get a nice golden parachute job into the corporate world once they're done with politics. And
how many times have we seen the studies about somebody who comes from nothing, gets into politics, and all of a sudden is a multimillionaire?
Mm-hmm.
Where does that come from? How does that happen?
603-283-6160 is the number here if you want to join us. The corruption won't ever stop as long as they're a monopoly. As long as you can't walk away and say, I'm taking my business elsewhere.
The system itself is corruption.
That's right. Yeah, and it doesn't matter who you elect. I understand people think, I got to throw out the bums. Well,
how'd the bums get in?
First of all, it never works, number one. I mean, incumbents For all the talk about throwing the bums out, incumbents win again and again and again and again. But even if you did, then you would just elect new bums, because that's who's attracted to these positions. Yep. Scumbags, sociopaths,
manipulators,
psychopaths, people who want to wield power over your lives. They're really nice when they talk to you. You know, these people are good at being friendly.
Got that charisma going on.
Yeah, they do. They want you to like them. They want you to vote for them, and then you'll never see them again. They might have talked to you during some campaign event or whatever. You tried to call them up while they're in office.
Oh, they seem so nice.
Yeah, they don't have time for you anymore. Go talk to the gatekeeper. Oh, what's that? They shut you down, never called back? Well, you just got to pay your taxes anyway, sucker. 603-283-6160. What is the metaverse? Let's talk about that coming up here. They're pimping this word around the internet right now. More coming up.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Giles Gibson with the Week in Review. The Tokyo Olympics got into full swing this week, with records broken in sporting arenas and in Japan's coronavirus outbreak. The Japanese government expanded the current state of emergency as COVID-19 cases in Tokyo hit all-time highs. Here's John Matthews in the Japanese capital.
More than 3,800 new COVID-19 cases were reported in Tokyo on Thursday, with more than 10,000 reported nationwide. While official numbers only show 539 ongoing severe cases, hospitals say that number only counts those who are near death, and that patient beds are beginning to fill up. Neighboring prefectures to Tokyo are also seeing record-high caseloads. Their governors are set to call for a new state of emergency in their areas. The Japanese Medical Association has suggested it be made a nationwide declaration. No sign yet this will impact the ongoing Olympic Games. Organizers say competitions are unconnected to the ongoing uptick, while domestic commentators say they're encouraging people to ignore government requests to stay indoors.
There was a big shock in gymnastics as American star Simone Biles pulled out of the individual all-round competition, saying she needs to focus on her mental health. She'd already withdrawn from the team event earlier in the week. Phoebe Amoroso has more.
This is the second event Simone Biles has pulled out of at the Tokyo Olympics. Earlier in the week, she withdrew partway through the women's team final to focus on her mental health. Her replacement in the all-round, Jade Carey, placed 9th in the qualifiers, coming 3rd amongst Team USA competitors. Biles has yet to announce whether she will compete next week in the individual events, all of which she has qualified for. At the start of the Games, Biles had 6 medals in her sights, to add to the 4 golds she won in Rio.
A select committee in the US House of Representatives heard emotional testimony this week from police officers who were on duty on the 6th of January when a mob of Trump supporters attacked the US Capitol. Our Washington correspondent Caroline Malone has the details.
It's almost 7 months since a mob smashed its way into the heart of America's democracy, breaking down doors and shattering windows. But for the police officers who tried to protect the US Capitol on the 6th of January, it feels like it was just yesterday. Here's Sergeant Aquilino Gonell of the Capitol Police.
What we were subjected that day was like something from a medieval battle. We fought hand to hand, inch by inch, to prevent an invasion of the Capitol by a violent mob intent on subverting our democratic process.
Republicans labelled the proceedings a sham after Democrat Speaker Nancy Pelosi blocked the appointment of 2 GOP congressmen to the committee.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. US President Joe Biden announced that American troops will step back from their combat role in Iraq by the end of this year. Here's FSN's Rebecca Foster.
There are around 2,500 U.S. troops in Iraq right now. They've spent the last few years helping to root out ISIS fighters. But after a White House meeting with Iraq's Prime Minister, U.S. President Joe Biden confirmed American soldiers will be stepping back from the front lines.
Our role in Iraq will be to be available to continue to train, to assist, and to deal with ISIS as it arrives. But we are not going to be, by the end of the year, in a combat mission.
While ISIS has been defeated militarily in both Iraq and Syria, this year has seen multiple rocket and drone attacks inside Iraq. No groups have claimed responsibility, but it's believed Iran-backed militias are behind the strikes. Rebecca Foster, Washington.
And finally, the UK government announced this week that fully vaccinated travellers from the US and EU will be allowed to enter England without the need to quarantine on arrival. Our UK correspondent John Beaver reports.
Up to now, only those vaccinated in the UK are recognised by the increasingly complex travel rules here. It means for those fully vaccinated, there's no need to quarantine when returning from more than 100 countries on the green and amber travel list. From the 4th of August, those rules will also apply to people vaccinated in the United States and European Union. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps said the move will reunite people living in the US and European countries with their family and friends in the UK. John Beaver reporting.
There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story, and that was the Week in Review. Giles Gibson reporting.
This is the Onion Week in Review. A study finds that Americans need 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep at work in order to leave the office feeling refreshed and alert. Leading endocrinologists told reporters that more and more people are pulling all-dayers and drinking coffee just to keep themselves awake for meetings and conference calls, and that in order to be properly rested, employees should arrive at work, check their email for a few hours, and be sound asleep by 11:30 a.m. at the very latest.
In order for the body to properly function, adults need to make sure that they're well rested and they're not staying up too late at work.
The Lord our God, divine creator and ruler of the universe, announced Wednesday that he does not consider human beings his most impressive creation, saying instead that mountains are categorically superior in every way. Claiming that mankind was a good creation and worthy of praise, the deity explained that human beings simply pale in comparison to the slopes, valleys, and sheer magnitude of a snow-capped 20,000-foot mountain, and that while all humans eventually grow old and die, mountains last forever.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the third hour here of the live Saturday edition of the program. If you want to join us, you can. The number is open for you at 603-283-6160. Talk about whatever you want. It doesn't have to be what we've been discussing here tonight. It's open phones as always. 603-283-6160. With you here, it's Ian.
And the captain.
Also want to say thank you to Jake Leonard. He is a Free Talk Live Gold amplifier, and that means that Jake is contributing $10 a month through the AMP program. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. It's a way for you to help us get these ideas onto more radio stations. We've got 180 plus radio stations, at great stations, airing us at various different times throughout the week. We could be at 200, 300. I mean, it's possible. It does take time and it takes money.
Let's get there.
And so thank you, Jake, for your support. I appreciate that. And thanks to everybody who amps the show over at amp.freetalklive.com. You can use your credit card, debit card, or PayPal to get signed up and get some cool perks. You get some benefits for doing that over at amp.freetalklive.com. And again, thanks to Jake. So speaking of the internet, the term metaverse.
Yeah, I don't.
Captain.
So I was speculating. It means a verse that's repeated in many different songs. That would be meta, right?
No, not in this case. This is the new buzzword. We've been talking about buzzwords here tonight.
Is this like a take on multiverse?
Nope. No, it's not.
This would be the universe above the universe then, or the universe that supersedes the universe.
This is a new pitch of what the internet should be by big tech companies like Facebook. So already, if you don't like Facebook, and I don't much care for them, you should probably be on guard about this. But what is it? Imagine a world. This is techexplore.com writing the story here. Imagine a world where you could sit on the same couch as a friend who lives thousands of miles away, or conjure up a virtual version of your workplace while at the beach. Welcome to the metaverse, a vision of the future that sounds fantastical, but which tech titans like Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg are betting on as the next great leap in the evolution of the internet. The metaverse is, in fact, the stuff of science fiction. The term was coined by Neal Stephenson in his 1992 novel Snow Crash, in which people don virtual reality headsets to interact inside a game-like digital world. But is that all this is just virtual reality? Because, it's kind of old hat at this point, right? Like, we've had virtual reality. It's kind of come out. It didn't really take the world by storm like everybody was expecting it to. It's cool.
Right.
The book has long enjoyed cult status among Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, but in recent months, the metaverse has become one of the tech sector's hottest buzzwords, with companies pouring millions of dollars into its development. Facebook fueled the excitement further Monday by announcing the creation of a new team to work on Zuckerberg's vision of the metaverse. Now, remember, Facebook bought Oculus.
Right.
Oculus was one of the first to market, maybe the first, if not the second.
Virtual reality headsets and all that, yeah.
User-affordable virtual reality headsets. So Facebook saw that technology and said, we want that, and paid billions of dollars or whatever for it. So keep that in mind. Quote, this is going to be a really big part of the next chapter for the technology industry, Zuckerberg told tech website The Verge last week. Over the next 5 years, he predicted Facebook would transition from primarily being a social media company to being a metaverse company. And what does that mean?
This sounds to me like... so you remember the reboot of Battlestar Galactica?
Yeah, I liked it.
It was really, really good. I
never saw the original, though.
I did see the original, and of course the reboot far superior in almost every way.
To know.
Yeah, shape or form. But there was a spin-off of that called Caprica.
Yeah,
and
I remember watching that too.
Caprica had this, similar to what you're describing, this virtual reality universe.
Mm-hmm. That people were spending all too much time in?
Yeah, some people, not all people, but some people were. And what happened was, this metaverse existed, and then somehow the ability for consciousness to be either uploaded or trapped, if you will, in the metaverse came into existence. And these consciousnesses were sentient. And they figured out how to manipulate people into building them these robot bodies, and that's how the Cylon, the Centurions.
Right, Caprica was a prequel, basically.
Caprica was a prequel that told the origin story of how the Cylons came
robots
into existence.
Became, where they were, and then
kind of like
humans.
Yeah, kind of like what is it, Terminator, right? Where it's sort of the original Terminator, sort of a prequel to the rest of the series. I mean, not that. It's not really a prequel in that respect. It's an origin story, but it's kind of the same premise where they tell the origin story of the evil thing.
I remember liking it, but didn't they get canceled? Didn't that get canceled?
Caprica? Yeah, it didn't last.
Didn't last more than
long.
A season or something like that.
Maybe 2 seasons. But this sounds eerily like that. Now, in Terminator, of course, it was Skynet that you had to be afraid of, and Skynet itself became sentient. So I don't, whereas in the Battlestar Galactica, in the metaverse, consciousness could exist inside this metaverse independently of having a physical body.
As with many tech buzzwords, the definition of the metaverse depends on who you ask. But broadly, it involves blending the physical world with the digital one, with the help of augmented reality glasses, which are different from virtual reality glasses. It might allow you to see information whiz before your eyes as you walk around a city, from traffic and pollution updates to local history. So that's different. So virtual reality is just a briefing here. Virtual reality is where everything is computerized.
Yes.
Like you are occluded from reality. You don't see anything through the glasses. What you see is what the computer's feeding to your eyes.
And everything is, we'll say, fictional in virtual reality, whereas augmented reality is where they're showing you things that exist in real human space, but then augmenting those things.
Right, so imagine a heads-up display, basically. You see reality. It's letting the light through the lens or whatever, but it's also putting up computer graphics over top of it. Your standard kind of sci-fi, they do this a lot, right? Yep. So you can see stats. Look, the Terminator's a great example of this, right? So Terminator with his red screen vision, he's got the video of what's happening in front of him and then data about what's happening. So.
Right. You walk down a street and you look at, I don't know, a club, and it says, oh, there's 300 people in the club and there's
here are the
loud music,
hours.
and here are the,
But the metaverse enthusiasts are dreaming of a future in which the idea could be extended much further, allowing us to be transported to digital settings that feel real, such as a nightclub or a mountaintop. As workers have grown weary of video conferences during the pandemic, Zuckerberg is particularly excited about the idea that coworkers could be brought together in a virtual room that feels like they are face-to-face. Which, on its face, doesn't sound like a bad idea for those people that are sadly relegated to these, forced work-at-home situations. To make people feel like they're together probably is better than, a Zoom session.
This seems weird because it seems to require you and another person to have nearly identical rooms in order to participate in this.
Well, no, this would likely be a virtual room.
Well, then we're talking about something more akin to Star Trek: The Next Generation's invention.
They just gave the
holodeck.
They gave the augmented reality as an example.
Okay,
I suspect this encompasses virtual reality, augmented reality, and the like. But more here. So games in which players enter immersive digital worlds, which they've been doing for a long time, offer a glimpse into what the metaverse could eventually look like, blurring virtual entertainment with the real-world economy. As far back as the early 2000s, the game Second Life allowed people to create digital avatars that could interact and shop with real money. Now, our listeners that go way back with Free Talk Live will remember there were some listeners who were really into Second Life. And this is like circa 2005, 2006.
Yep.
And this is a long time ago, that they created like a lounge in which Free Talk Live would play when our show was live. And so listeners could go into this lounge. I don't know. It might still exist.
That's so kick-ass.
Because from what I understand, Second Life still exists.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's been upgraded. It still looks like it's from 2005 or whatever. But people still, they still have whatever interactions they have there. They build things, etc. They sell things. But you could sit there and, drink a fake drink or whatever in virtual reality and quote-unquote hang out with other listeners.
Right.
I mean, ultimately, it's a virtual reality chat room, when it comes down to it. We have various forms of chat rooms. People like that stuff, right? You can go to our Matrix server right now over at chat.freetalklive.com. And there are video conferences that you can do over that system, too. So how is this metaverse concept different, though, than what we've been having for the last 2 decades? That's what I'm not clear on. We'll talk more about it coming up here. You can share your thoughts as well. Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
On March 16th this year, government task forces violently raided the New Hampshire Bitcoin Embassy, the Mighty Moose Mart, the homes of Aria DiMezzo, Andy and Renee Spinella, Colleen Fordham, a grandmother, and perhaps most relevant, the studios of Free Talk Live. The Crypto Six were arrested. 4 were released on bail conditions, but Ian Freeman was held hostage for 69 days. Rich Paul, also known as Nobody, remains captive. We've consulted attorneys who say no crime even appears to have been committed. But that didn't stop the Joint Thug Task Force from ripping out wires from our broadcast stacks, taking Free Talk Live off the air, resulting in a violation of our and your First Amendment rights. You can visit thecrypto6.com to help, but as importantly, contact other media and tell them about this outrage. This case is likely to set precedent for cryptocurrency use well into your future. Help our fight for liberty and financial freedom at thecrypto6.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. The number here is 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. What is the metaverse? It's the latest buzzword being thrown around about where the internet is going from here. Because remember, this whole internet thing's still relatively new in the scheme of things, right? Like, you know, it's only been around for a few decades at this point. So where is it going? We are going to talk more about that. Of course, your calls and thoughts are welcome. You can bring up anything that you want. 603-283-6160. It's Ian and the captain here in the studio. Now, so far, this description of the metaverse sounds a lot like what we've already had. I'm looking at a story from Tech Explorer, Explorer.com. And they're describing augmented reality glasses, which sort of have been tried already. Yeah. I think Google had a thing called Google Glass. Didn't really go anywhere. Yeah. From what I understand, Facebook might be working on something.
Well, and they also, and by they I mean somebody has prototypes for these augmented reality suits that you basically put on and they give you sensations. Right, so you wear a whole suit and it's filled with like all these little electrodes and little tiny, machines, if you will, little tiny sensors, as well as things that like either contract or expand the material. So like, if you're in one of these like fight games and somebody throws a punch, you can kind of feel the punch, kind of thing. Also for the people who are into like the virtual sex and stuff, right?
Okay.
That you can feel, you can actually feel physical sensations. If somebody in a game gives you a hug, the suit mimics you getting a hug, right? So these things are, either in development or in prototype stage. So all of these things, of course, are going to
I'm kind of horrified by that.
Are going to get married together. And we were talking during the break a little bit about how I feel like this is treading into like Black Mirror territory.
This is a Netflix series, a sort of dystopian.
Yeah, it's Charlie Brooker invented it. It was originally part of a British television station who only commissioned him for like 3 episodes, and then it went over so well he got another 3, and then of course Netflix picked it up to bring it to a wider audience. But I found this from Forbes, right? Because I'm always looking for a practical application for these things. Like, give me like, what is this going to be like? Give me a description of something practical.
Okay.
And so this says, imagine walking down the street and suddenly you think of a product that you need. Well, immediately next to you, a vending machine appears filled with the product and variations you were thinking of. You stop, you pick an item from the vending machine, it's shipped to your house, and then you continue on your way.
And Facebook gets a cut.
Well, of course they do.
Because now Facebook is talking about becoming a metaverse company.
And probably Amazon, too. I'm sure they're right there with them. So that's in example number 1. And I imagine, again, it told me to imagine, so I'm imagining that you're wearing whatever apparatus you need to be part of this metaverse, whether it's just goggles or a hat or a whole suit.
Eventually they'll figure out how to do a brain jack, and then you won't have an apparatus anymore.
BCIs already exist. That's a brain-computer interface. They're already teaching computers how to interpret the way your skull reacts to certain things, and like you can actually type sentences and that kind of a thing just by wearing one of these BCIs and having it hooked up to a computer with the right software. So it's not a huge leap to think that, you can just put one of these things on and think about stuff. So you're wearing these special glasses or whatever, you're walking down the street, you think of something, and this vending machine appears, not in real life, but in this metaverse.
Hello, Captain.
Yes, it's like, did you mean, but it's a vending machine full of stuff, right? So the next one
crushes your friend who was walking next to you.
Who was being annoying. No, I'm just kidding. The next one says, imagine a husband and wife. The husband offers to go to the store, but the wife can't quite remember the name and type of the product she needs. Well, her BCI, her brain-computer interface device, recognizes it for her, sends a link to her husband's device along with what stores and what aisle this thing is located
I expect by that point you probably won't even have to go to the store,
I mean,
but yeah, they're giving an example of what this might look like.
Some things people probably won't give up very easily. Going to the store might be one of them.
Unless they outlaw it.
Well, it depends, too. Like, some people will order a whole bunch of stuff online, but when it comes to, like, I don't know, their jock itch cream or something, they're very sensitive and they want to go pay cash at the Walgreens, They don't want...
Only the cashier knows.
Yeah, they don't want Bezos, knowing what kind and variety and potency of, ball cream that they're ordering off of Amazon or whatever. So, but, so what this says to me is that, we're going to see the marriage of virtual reality and reality come together in such a way that, like, it's going to be either used for good or for awesome or for not so awesome.
Yeah, there's no doubt that this technology is going to be interesting and going to be useful. But in the hands of people like Facebook, consider me skeptical about, how it's going to be implemented, what it's going to mean for privacy, things like that. Do you want to hear more from this story? Is there more that you want to highlight there?
Well, I just want to point out that metaverse is a portmanteau because I'm a huge fan of portmanteau. So.
Of what?
Meta, which means, what does meta mean? Meaning beyond.
Okay.
And then universe, which is, the term typically used to describe the concept of, sort of where the galaxy is and that kind of thing.
So we're talking about some earlier examples of virtual interactions. They give Second Life as an example where people could create digital avatars and interact and shop way back, 15 plus years ago. More recently, from techexplorer.com, they say plots of land in Decentraland, a virtual world where visitors can watch concerts, visit art galleries, and gamble in casinos, have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of mana, which is a cryptocurrency. I have not heard of this, but
I've seen
there's thousands of
T-shirts
cryptos.
mentioning mana, M-A-N-A, if I'm correct on the spelling.
Maybe they're in this Decentraland thing.
Where can I go to this Decentraland? How do I get there?
I don't know, but I bet you could find out. The hugely popular video game Fortnite, which I think almost everyone's heard of, even if they haven't ever played it, has also expanded into other forms of entertainment, with 12.3 million people logging in to watch rapper Travis Scott perform virtually last year. Fortnite's owners, Epic Games, said in April that $1 billion worth of funding raised recently will be used to support its vision for the metaverse. And that's a quote, vision for the metaverse. So Epic Games is working on this. Facebook is working on this. On Roblox, a gaming platform popular with children, a digital version of a Gucci bag sold in May for more than $4,100, which is more than the physical version of the bag would have cost. Kathy Hackle, a tech consultant who advises companies on the metaverse, said the next generation was more comfortable with the idea of attaching real meaning to virtual experiences and objects. And look at the whole NFT trend.
I was just going to say, I bet you NFTs could kill it in the metaverse.
Non-fungible tokens is what that is called. I think you guys discussed it briefly on the Friday night show, but for listeners that aren't familiar, it's a unique, digitally signed, cryptographically sealed product, basically. A piece of art, a song, a video game character, or whatever. There's a bunch of different things that this could be. You mentioned that Kevin Smith is making a movie that will be given to the one person who pays the most for it at an auction, and then they'll decide what to do with it. So there's some kind of interesting creative things that have been done with these NFTs so far, and it's definitely a buzzword. Right now, NFTs, this hot buzzword that seems like everybody and their grandmother is jumping on this train.
It's artists specifically.
Oh, no, not just artists. The corporations are jumping on now, too.
Okay, sure, but I mean, what I've seen is like the most successful sales have been sales of things that would be considered art.
Yes, and in this case, fans can bid on things, and these artists make the super majority of the money instead of having to go through a record company.
Virtual merchandise is really what it is.
So there's more here about the metaverse. And if you've heard about it, you've got an opinion, we definitely want to hear from you. This is Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Giles Gibson with the Week in Review. The Tokyo Olympics got into full swing this week, with records broken in sporting arenas and in Japan's coronavirus outbreak. The Japanese government expanded the current state of emergency as COVID-19 cases in Tokyo hit all-time highs. Here's John Matthews in the Japanese capital.
More than 3,800 new COVID-19 cases were reported in Tokyo on Thursday, with more than 10,000 reported nationwide. While official numbers only show 539 ongoing severe cases, hospitals say that number only counts those who are near death, and that patient beds are beginning to fill up. Neighboring prefectures to Tokyo are also seeing record-high caseloads. Their governors are set to call for a new state of emergency in their areas. The Japanese Medical Association has suggested it be made a nationwide declaration. No sign yet this will impact the ongoing Olympic Games. Organizers say competitions are unconnected to the ongoing uptick, while domestic commentators say they're encouraging people to ignore government requests to stay indoors.
There was a big shock in gymnastics as American star Simone Biles pulled out of the individual all-round competition, saying she needs to focus on her mental health. She'd already withdrawn from the team event earlier in the week. Phoebe Amoroso has more.
This is the second event Simone Biles has pulled out of at the Tokyo Olympics. Earlier in the week, she withdrew partway through the women's team final to focus on her mental health. Her replacement in the all-round, Jade Carey, placed 9th in the qualifiers, coming 3rd amongst Team USA competitors. Biles has yet to announce whether she will compete next week in the individual events, all of which she has qualified for. At the start of the Games, Biles had 6 medals in her sights, to add to the 4 golds she won in Rio.
A select committee in the US House of Representatives heard emotional testimony this week from police officers who were on duty on the 6th of January, when a mob of Trump supporters attacked the US Capitol. Our Washington correspondent Caroline Malone has the details.
It's almost 7 months since a mob smashed its way into the heart of America's democracy, breaking down doors and shattering windows. But for the police officers who tried to protect the US Capitol on the 6th of January, it feels like it was just yesterday. Here's Sergeant Aquilino Gonell of the Capitol Police.
What we were subjected that day was like something from a medieval battle. We fought hand to hand, inch by inch, to prevent an invasion of the Capitol by a violent mob intent on subverting our democratic process.
Republicans labelled the proceedings a sham after Democrat Speaker Nancy Pelosi blocked the appointment of 2 GOP congressmen to the committee.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want here. We're talking about the metaverse, a recent buzzword in the internet world. What is, where is the internet going? Some people say to the metaverse. That's where the evolution is heading toward. A lot of big companies are betting the farm on this. Epic Games raising $1 billion in funding to support its vision for the metaverse. You've got Facebook's founder, Mark Zuckerberg, saying that they're becoming a metaverse company instead of a social media company. And, of course, they already own Oculus, which is one of the major players in the world of virtual reality. And so the story here from Tech Explore, explore.com on the metaverse, sort of a general overview of what this thing is going into some examples of sort of virtual existing things like Fortnite, which is just a game. But apparently there was a rapper who performed in Fortnite last year, so they're doing more than just shooting each other. Then there's also an old example of Second Life from the early 2000s where people have digital avatars and can shop with real money and interact and build things. But now there's this thing, Decentraland, which I had not heard of at all. You had heard of the Mana thing, which is the cryptocurrency associated with this thing. And we were just looking into it there during the break. And so, this sounds a lot like a new, better version of Second Life. Because the problem with Second Life is it's centrally controlled. There's a company, I believe their name is Linden Labs, if I recall correctly. And if they don't like you, and they don't like something you did in the game, well, you get kicked out.
Yep.
Now, that's not to say that Decentraland doesn't have some sort of governance structure. From what I understand, they do. There's a decentralized autonomous organization involved here.
There's a DAO, and then there's also voting involved somehow.
Yeah, so what all that means, we don't know. We're just doing a brief overview here. But in Decentraland, visitors can watch concerts, visit art galleries, gamble in casinos, and things in Decentraland have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of mana. Right now, one mana is worth about 73 cents. And this is another interesting thing. In Second Life, they had, I think, something called Linden Dollars, which I don't remember what the denomination was of the Linden dollar as far as it was related to the US dollar, though. It wasn't a cryptocurrency. It was before cryptocurrencies were invented. They came up with a digital currency called Linden Dollars or Lindens or something like that. But it was based on a dollar. So if you paid $1, you'd get X number of Lindens. There was a firm exchange rate. It wasn't like something the market determined or anything like that. So, it was a very early digital concept of exchanging value online. And to its credit, it was, for its time, an interesting idea. But again, centrally controlled. So if Decentraland is as decentralized as it's purported to be, and it's a newer technology, obviously it is, right? Like the graphics look way better. Just looking here.
It was launched in 2015.
Yeah, so it's going to look a lot better. Kudos to them. I mean, it seems like an interesting proposal, an interesting idea.
Check this out. Just searching during the break, this is part of an article about the same thing from NBC News. Most everything in Decentraland is an NFT, a non-fungible token.
Okay.
From its virtual plots of land to the art on the walls in the virtual galleries, NFTs are a type of digital certificate of authenticity that uses blockchain technology, creating a secure way to track who owns a digital asset. So everything built in Decentraland is an NFT, apparently.
Interesting.
So, like, ownership can change. You can sell things, whatever these things are, inside of Decentraland itself.
I mean, back in the day with Second Life, people were making a living doing things in Second Life.
That's what this says, too, is that there are, through Mana, because Mana is already on cryptocurrency exchanges, and you said I think 73 cents a coin.
One of the top 100 coins. It's top 70. It's like number 68 right now.
So, this currency can cross over from the metaverse
into
the real world. So,
which is interesting.
Very interesting.
And presumably you don't have to ask anyone's permission to take it out of the game, because that's sort of the nature of these decentralized cryptocurrencies, is no one can stop you from having it.
As long as you've got a wallet that can handle it, you should be able to move it at your leisure.
If you're deep into this and you want to, weigh in, feel free. Like I said, we're just doing an overview here. So there's more to the story. Kathy Heckel, a tech consultant, said the next generation is more comfortable with the idea of attaching real meaning to virtual experiences. She says, my first concert was in a stadium. My son's first concert was watching Lil Nas X, who's a rapper apparently, on Roblox. Just because it happened in Roblox, she says, it didn't make it less real for him. She rejects the dystopian vision presented in Snow Crash of a virtual world where people go to escape the horrors of reality, which is gonna happen.
It is.
That's why people use video games generally. I mean, look, I love a good video game. I just don't spend much time on them anymore. But this takes it to the next level.
I'm a science fiction buff as far as television and film is concerned, and so these concepts aren't new to the world of science fiction. And even in sci-fi books, these concepts, I mean, science fiction to me is kind of like the technological prophets, P-R-O-P-H-E-T-S, prophets of current time.
A lot of the stuff has come true.
Yeah.
An idea that emerged 2 decades later, again in the novel and Steven Spielberg movie Ready Player One. Nor does she think the metaverse would necessarily involve everyone shutting out their neighbors with virtual reality headsets around the clock. Well, most people shut out their neighbors anyway. Like before virtual reality came out, people weren't talking to their neighbors. I mean, that's nothing new.
No.
Facebook has invested heavily in technology that allows people to feel like they are physically somewhere else, such as its Portal video calling devices, Oculus headsets, and its Horizon virtual reality platform. But even Zuckerberg has admitted that existing virtual reality headsets are, quote, a bit clunky, unquote, requiring a far greater development for the kind of experiences that he has described. And they're going to get there. I mean, virtual reality is, when I did try it, Derek and Steven, our friends from AnyPay, they threw a party, I don't know, it must be 2 years ago now at this point. They got one of these Oculus Rifts, and they were letting people at the party try it out. And I had, at that point, done, like, the cheapy, Google, what do they call it? Google Cardboard? No, Google Cardboard, where you'd, like, set your phone in the thing, and then you could do, like, a virtual reality. And, that was kind of a cool little gimmick. Just to give you a taste of what it could be like. Oculus was very cool. It was definitely neat. But, you had cords trailing down your back. So it was real obvious that you were still within this virtual reality, even though it's pretty persuasive. It tracks right. It looks good. You're not going to puke unless you're super sensitive to the motion. But, eventually, and probably already, because I'm not following the tech, I suspect they already have wireless headsets at this point. I mean, that's the obvious next thing. It's like most people are going to say, cut these wires.
Yep.
So they need to, develop that technology, and then they need to make them lighter, and all that's coming.
Yep.
It's all coming. Wedbush tech analyst Michael Pachter says it was hard to predict whether Facebook could truly transform into a metaverse company in 5 years, but they certainly have a huge advantage of having 1 billion people log on every day. If they offer entertainment options, it's likely they will succeed. And so, did virtual reality really take off? I don't think it did. It's there. It's not. It doesn't seem like it's dying.
It hasn't gone away, but to say it took off might be a misnomer. It's not quite. It's not mainstream enough for me anyway to say that it's taken off. But here's something interesting. This is related to Decentraland, and this is from Cameron Thompson over at CoinDesk.com.
Okay.
From June 13th of this year, so just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Boson, which is an internet protocol, a blockchain protocol, BOSON. Boson pays record $704,000 for Decentraland plot to create a virtual mall.
Wow.
The blockchain protocol will allow users of Decentraland communities to exchange virtual and real-world products. That's just mind-blowing to me, right?
Blockchain, $700,000 to buy virtual real estate.
To establish a virtual mall.
Yeah. Wow.
The retail space will allow players of Decentraland's browser-based game to purchase digital assets they can then exchange for physical goods and services.
Okay, interesting. And you just told me this is browser-based, so this isn't a virtual reality. I mean, it probably works with the helmets, but anybody with a web browser can get into this thing.
That's what this says.
Which is interesting as well. 603-283-6160. You can join us here on Free Talk Live. What do you think of this?
The Shire Free Church offers a sanctuary to those seeking an escape from state churches.
The Shire Free Church is an interfaith, diverse group of people that may not share identical theological beliefs. As a member in or minister of the Shire Free Church, you are a sovereign individual and may be the faith of your choice.
We don't claim to have all of the answers.
We are open to all peaceful people.
We want to learn from each other.
What unifies the Shire Free Church and its diverse members is peace,
love, and liberty. There are many paths to God, one for every individual.
The Shire Free Church does not define a specific path beyond those parameters that must be your foundation.
Peace as your way.
Love as your guide.
And liberty as your light.
Learn more at church.shiresociety.com.
That's church.shiresociety.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit shiresociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at shiresociety.com. That's shiresociety.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com. Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
Parental advisory, the next topic here on Free Talk Live, is going to be pretty hard to handle.
Ow, my balls.
Yeah.
Wait. So just so our listeners know where Ow, My Balls came from, that would be, can you name the movie?
It's in my head right now, the Mike Judge movie.
That's right. It's the one everybody says was a prophecy.
Yeah, it's just, I'm blanking on it. I know what
too.
It's called. Oh, wait, you're asking me?
Yeah, no, I'm like, I was hoping you would recall because I'm like,
it's got President Camacho.
Dwayne Elizondo.
It starts with an I.
Duke, Idiocracy.
Idiocracy.
Yeah, there we go. All right, we worked through that.
God.
Thank you, listeners, for all your help on that.
Oh, great movie, though. It was a great movie.
So in Idiocracy, for our listeners who don't know or haven't seen the movie.
Yeah, go see it.
Go see it, first of all, or rent it or download it, whatever you're going to do. One of the most...
You'll be shocked at how accurate it is.
One of the most popular television programs in that particular movie is something called Ow, My Balls. And
you can imagine.
You don't have to really think very hard to figure out what that is about.
Yeah, people are really dumbed down in that particular society, and, well, you know, it's pretty prophetic. It was the late 90s, right, when that one came out, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
All right. So, hey, if you want to talk about this Decentraland or the metaverse, that's still open, for discussion. I imagine some of our listeners that are in the world of cryptocurrency probably already knew about this, but there's thousands of cryptos out there. We don't know what they all are. I mean, I love cryptocurrency. I love the technology and where it's taking us and the financial freedom that it allows, and decentralization is such a great thing. How cool is it that they've made a decentralized Second Life, basically. They made us a decentralized, little virtual world, and it's got its own currency, and it looks like it's working, and it looks like it's possible. If somebody's spending $700,000 on buying virtual property, and then you just told me during the break, Sotheby's just opened up an auction house.
They purchased enough virtual real estate in this Decentraland to create a replica of their London-based auction house. Yeah. Inside of this thing, yeah. And we didn't tell the listeners that the $704,000 was spent on buying this virtual piece of land to create a mall.
We didn't? I thought we did do that.
I thought that was just you and I during
I think we did that in the last segment.
Oh, okay.
But pretty crazy stuff. I'm curious to see where this goes. I like this. I think this is a good idea. I mean, obviously, I support people having real-life relationships, okay? So, I still think that's more valuable. But, look, there's no stopping this. It's coming, right? Like more digital interactions between people. It's not going to go away. It's going to become more popular. So if people can actually own a piece of it, if people can, not be controlled by a corporation in the midst of it, I think this Decentraland is the most exciting aspect of the metaverse concept that I've heard of so far. Because whatever Facebook's going to do, I ain't excited about it.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's going to be virtual chat rooms or whatever, some sort of Facebook land.
We'll
totally
see.
Totally corporate controlled. So we'll keep an eye on this, and if you want to bring new news to the table, let us know.
I do like the bit though about the NFTs. So everything in Decentraland is a non-fungible token.
Yeah.
And you can exchange it for the real thing in the real world.
Well, presuming there is a real thing associated with it.
Right.
Because a lot of these non-fungible tokens are digital only. I mean, I would say from what I've seen, the vast majority of NFTs are digital only, artwork that's only available digitally. It's a whole phenomenon. We could talk about NFTs another time, but I want to talk about, and again, this is the a very adult discussion here.
PG-13.
About
listener discretion is advised.
From thesmokinggun.com, a man in Florida man, age 76, is taking a plea deal for performing a home castration. Not on himself, by the way, on somebody else. An elderly Florida man today copped a plea.
Wait, I'm sorry, what's the date on this one?
July 29th.
Okay.
Copped a plea to felony charges in connection with his bloody, botched castration of a man he met on a eunuch website. Yes, that's right. There are websites for people who feel like they don't want to have their testicles anymore. A crime for which he will be sentenced to 3 years in prison, according to court records. During a circuit court hearing, the man, Gary Van Ryswyk, age 76, pleaded no contest to unlicensed practice of a healthcare profession, resulting in serious bodily injury. He entered into a similar plea in a second lesser felony charge. The agreement signed by the man and his lawyer indicates the septuagenarian fetishist will be sentenced later this year to 3 years in state prison. The top count to which he pleaded carries a maximum 15-year term of incarceration, so he got off pretty easy, all things considered. But since Van Ryswyk, he's also 76, he's probably going to die in prison, will be credited for the time he spent in a county jail before making bond in November of 2020. He will likely serve around 2 more years in state custody. A detailed account of the at-home castration that he performed in August of 2019 on the victim, who is now 55 years old, is contained in the case file, which was provided to the Smoking Gun in an open records request, along with crime scene photos and police reports. The records include recorded interviews with Van Ryswyk and the victim, who was a hardware store manager. Police discovered his amateur surgery setup after a 911 hang-up call was traced to his home in Sebring, Florida. Upon arrival at the 3-bedroom residence, cops were met at the front door by Van Ryswyk, who explained to them that he had just performed a castration inside the 1,300 square foot property. The patient was in a rear bedroom where he was at the time bleeding uncontrollably and, quote, holding a bloody towel to his groin region, noted the police. The man had driven about 100 miles to Van Ryswyk's home from St. Petersburg, where he lived and worked. Now, this is a similar story to one that we talked about, a year ago.
I was going to say, this sounds eerily familiar.
In the last story that we covered, it was a couple guys who were living out somewhere in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And a guy who went from, I think, Tennessee. He flew to Texas.
Yeah, I thought Tennessee was involved somehow.
They drove down to the airport, wherever it was in Texas, picked him up, took him back to their house, where they then proceeded to cut him. And they couldn't patch him up real good, so they dropped him off at a hospital.
That's what it was, right?
That's how the cops found out about it. In this case, it was a 911 call to the actual location. The man's testicles, removed during a procedure that took several hours, were in a pink container atop a bedside table in the makeshift operating room. Blood.
Like Tupperware?
I don't know. Blood was all over the bedroom floor and on the plastic sheet covering the bed. A plastic garbage can was overflowing with blood-soaked gauze. Atop a dresser was an assortment of surgical sutures, bandages, disinfectant wipes, peroxide, topical antiseptics, and a container of hemostatic powder used to treat minor cuts and wounds that are suffered by dogs and cats. So if you clip your dog's nails and you clip the quick accidentally and it starts to bleed, you put this powder on it, clogs it up. That's what they had in the hopes of stopping the bleeding here.
They'd have been better off using super glue or something, man.
Elsewhere in the room was a Nikon camera on a tripod that the man used to record the castration. So if you needed the evidence, there it is. He planned to upload the video post-op, but it was seized, of course, during the police search of his home. Investigators took possession of a wide array of medical tools, many of which were covered with blood, everything from scalpels to clamps, hypodermic needles, forceps. They also confiscated a surgical stapler, rubber tourniquet, soldering iron, and an assortment of skinning and fillet knives. Asked by a detective about his extensive surgical tool collection, the man answered, "I like medical stuff." When the cop asked, "Is that another fetish for you or what?" the man responded, "I suppose you might call them a fetish. I'm kind of a prepper type, you know." Van Ryswyk and the victim told police they'd met on the UK-based Eunuch Maker website. The victim said, and this is a thing apparently, there are some number of people out there, enough to have a whole website dedicated to a person who wants to have his testicles removed, matching them up with someone who's within their nearby vicinity who's willing to do the job.
Looking for castrations nearby?
Yes, because you can't go and get this procedure done in any kind of medical, facility. So they go underground, basically.
Why can't you go get it done in a medical facility?
I think they just won't perform it for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason is for that, but
so this would
do
be,
no harm, I guess,
would be all sort of black or gray market.
It's all black market because, anytime something's prohibited, what happens? Whether it's drugs, whether it's guns, whether it's cutting off your testicles, it goes underground. The man, by the way, the victim, said Van Ryswyk told him he'd performed 25 castrations, but later admitted he'd only done it about 4 times.
About?
So
He's
that could be
sure
2
many?
rounding up, right? The man described his castration as a consensual encounter, initially told cops he didn't want to pursue charges against Van Ryswyk. Van Ryswyk, when questioned by the police, admitted he'd only done 2 other castrations, one of which he performed on himself. Without the aid of painkillers, he removed his right testicle in 2012. He did castrate some bulls, however, when he grew up on a farm in Minnesota. There's more to this story. I'm going to post it on our social media.
I am officially flabbergasted.
Complete with photographs of the crime scene.
No thanks.
Now look, hey, if this is what you want to do to yourself, I think you should be free to do it. I don't think this man committed a crime here, ultimately.
If it was consensual, sure.
Yeah. So, out of time tonight. Check out social.freetalklive.com for this link, and we'll see you tomorrow online. In the meantime, freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Giles Gibson with the Week in Review. The Tokyo Olympics got into full swing this week, with records broken in sporting arenas and in Japan's coronavirus outbreak. The Japanese government expanded the current state of emergency as COVID-19 cases in Tokyo hit all-time highs. Here's John Matthews in the Japanese capital.
More than 3,800 new COVID-19 cases were reported in Tokyo on Thursday, with more than 10,000 reported nationwide. While official numbers only show 539 ongoing severe cases, hospitals say that number only counts those who are near death, and that patient beds are beginning to fill up. Neighboring prefectures to Tokyo are also seeing record-high caseloads. Their governors are set to call for a new state of emergency in their areas. The Japanese Medical Association has suggested it be made a nationwide declaration. No sign yet this will impact the ongoing Olympic Games. Organizers say competitions are unconnected to the ongoing uptick, while domestic commentators say they're encouraging people to ignore government requests to stay indoors.
There was a big shock in gymnastics as American star Simone Biles pulled out of the individual all-round competition, saying she needs to focus on her mental health. She'd already withdrawn from the team event earlier in the week. Phoebe Amoroso has more.
This is the second event Simone Biles has pulled out of at the Tokyo Olympics. Earlier in the week, she withdrew partway through the women's team final to focus on her mental health. Her replacement in the all-round, Jade Carey, placed 9th in the qualifiers, coming 3rd amongst Team USA competitors. Biles has yet to announce whether she will compete next week in the individual events, all of which she has qualified for. At the start of the Games, Biles had 6 medals in her sights, to add to the 4 golds she won in Rio.
A select committee in the US House of Representatives heard emotional testimony this week from police officers who were on duty on the 6th of January when a mob of Trump supporters attacked the US Capitol. Our Washington correspondent Caroline Malone has the details.
It's almost 7 months since a mob smashed its way into the heart of America's democracy, breaking down doors and shattering windows. But for the police officers who tried to protect the US Capitol on the 6th of January, it feels like it was just yesterday. Here's Sergeant Aquilino Gonell of the Capitol Police.
What we were subjected that day was like something from a medieval battle. We fought hand to hand, inch by inch, to prevent an invasion of the Capitol by a violent mob intent